the ADUs that are less than 756 square feet are included or excluded from the definition of the development. So,
Quick question.
yes.
Is that a living area or is that like a shop building? It would be also part of the new development if you were to build a new home and put a detached garage or a
So
shop.
it includes garages, it includes covered decks, it excludes driveways, it excludes open decks, and like pools, for example, flat work, those things are excluded. Anything that has a roof over it is included in the terms.
So the shop,
Yes.
so the detached shop,
Yeah.
that would be an additional, if it was 800 or 1,000 feet, that
Yes.
would be in addition to the living.
Well, AD shop, if it's not an ADU, would be included. So only ADUs, like accessory dwelling units, that are smaller than 750 square feet are excluded. Yeah, the tiny house, yes. So it's specifically to address the housing crisis. So mitigation fees can be used to expand the district's facilities to serve new development. Okay, so that's really the what the use is allowed for. So whenever the district is replacing existing facilities or apparatus, the fees cannot be used for that. It's only to add to the district system facilities. And mitigation fees specifically cannot be used for maintenance, deficiencies, or operations. So you cannot use the fees to maintain, you cannot use to cover operations. It really is to expand the district's system. So the history of mitigation fees here in the city of Clear Lake. The mitigation fee ordinance was adopted in 1993. So that's 31 years ago. And there has not been any significant updates to the program since then. At some point, the program set the fee ceiling of 35 cents per square foot and $1.05 per square foot on the fees without any inflation adjustments. And the fees currently being collected at $1 per square foot, regardless of the type of development. So when the program was first put in place, we found the rationale for the fees. A lot of things have changed since then. So the district at that time was not providing EMS. Now they do. Interestingly, fire station construction costs went from $64 to $70 per square foot, now to over $600. Class A engine or pumper cost went from $350,000 to $700,000. A water tender went from $110, $125 to over $500,000. So a lot of these costs have quadrupled, went up 5-6 times, and the fees stayed unchanged for over 3 decades. There's a lot of legal framework that surrounds mitigation fees. The legislation is shaped by the Supreme Court decisions as well as the California Mitigation Fee Act. On the Supreme Court decisions front, any fee that's any mitigation fee has to prove a nexus. And what nexus is, it's a reasonable relationship. So there's a framework, no framework in the law that applies to how you calculate and substantiate mitigation fees. But basically, the nexus requires 3 things to be present. There has to be a need. So the developer needs to be creating a need for facilities that are funded by the fees. The developer wants to receive a benefit from the facilities that are funded by the fees. And the fees must be proportional to the impact created by the development. So the need, the benefit, and proportionality are the 3 major nexus requirements that come from the Supreme Court decisions. Then in California, we have the Mitigation Fee Act that spells out how the Supreme Court decisions and the overall mitigation fees are imposed, managed, reported in the state of California. So, and the Mitigation Fee Act requires that anytime a fee is put in place or updated, for the following nexus findings to be made. So the nexus study needs to identify the purpose of the fee, needs to identify the use of the fee, and then also to demonstrate the three nexus components, the benefit, the need, and the proportionality. From the standpoint of the adoption process, the impact fees are imposed as a condition of development approval by the land use authority. Special districts lack that authority. That authority is vested with the cities and counties. And the practice is, in the state is, the cities impose mitigation fees on behalf of the special districts that operate. So as far as the process goes, first the district prepares the nexus study that has to meet all the requirements of the law. Then the district board approves the nexus study and forwards it to the city with a request to adopt the nexus study on their behalf. And then the city council adopts the fee on behalf of the district for the city area. So the nexus study that we have developed, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but it definitely will be up for public hearing currently scheduled in 2 weeks, unless something changes. But the nexus study documents the nexus findings that are required by the Mitigation Fee Act. So the purpose of the fee is for new development to contribute its fair share of existing and future one-time public facility costs. The use of the fee is to fund expansion of and addition to the district's public facilities. The new development within the district service area increases the need for fire protection and emergency medical response public facilities. The benefit, the new development within the district service area benefits from availability of fire protection and emergency medical response public facilities. And finally, the proportionality. Fire mitigation fee allocates to new development its proportional share of the district's existing and future public facilities costs. So those are the 5 required nexus findings that are documented in the nexus study. So in terms of how the nexus study was developed, there was a very specific methodology that we follow. And the first step is understand what is the size and volume of the development within the district. Okay, so we looked at how much building square footage does the district currently cover. And we started with the county database, the parcel database, where every APN has information on what structures are located on a parcel. So we started with that, and then we started testing. Is there anything that the database is missing? So we found several holes in the data. One is the county does not keep track of manufactured homes. So what we made sure is we went through every parcel that is either a manufactured home community or it has a manufactured home on it as flagged by the parcel designation. And we manually pulled up those parcels and we looked whether it's single wide, double wide, and based on the average sizes of manufactured homes, we added that into the data set. Also for the manufactured home communities, we counted every unit within the parks and added that to the data set. Then we looked at the last 5 years of mitigation fee collections and made sure that the square footage is captured in the county data set. So that was added. And then finally, we did a search for any parcel that has an assessed value of over $50,000, but doesn't have any building square footage associated with it. So we did that search, manually pulled up each parcel, and if there was a structure, we added the square footage of that structure to the data set. The reason why that is important is we don't want to underestimate the volume of the existing development within the district, because when we start looking at the costs of the facilities and allocating those costs, we want to make sure that the existing development is fully taking the burden of the facilities that it benefits from. So, because otherwise, if we start allocating existing development and future development, if we undercount the existing development, too much burden will be placed on future development. So we went the extra mile to make sure that the current development is properly captured in the data set. So after all the adjustments were made, it is estimated that the current building footprint of buildings within the district is 17.4 million square feet. So that's how much property the district is currently serving. Then we looked at the patterns of development as well as potential projects within the district service area. And we made a projection for the next 18 years because it's a long-term planning process. So, and it looks like over the next 18 years, about 1.5 million square feet of new development will be added to the district's footprint. And the district's footprint includes the city and some county areas outside of the city.
Excuse me, so that's about 8% increase.
Yes.
In building population, or is that just in building?
That's just the building. That's the building.
So that's outside, is that including Lower Lake and Clear Lake?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So that's,
It's the entire.
yes, that's the entire service area. So by 2040, we're projecting that the district will be serving 18.9 million square feet of development.
How did you come up with 8%?
Well, so we looked at what's been happening over the last several years, how much new construction has been happening. And then also what are some of the projects in the pipeline that we know about. And we developed the patterns and made some projections as far as, and I can pull up that information, but we looked at how many new homes are being built within the district each year. We averaged that. How much additions are being added. How much non-residential buildings are being built. Multifamily. Looked at that, made some assumptions. And that's how it was started. So it's an 18-year forecast.
Commercial,
Commercial as well, yes. 18 non-residential.
so you've broken that commercial out from, and this is the total.
Yeah, this is
How
the
much of
total.
it's commercial, how much is, how did you determine how much is commercial, how much is?
So for each type of development, we made a specific projection. So, and all of that is addressed in the Nexus study, and we can certainly go into that if you'd like. But there was a methodology for new single family, for multifamily, for single family additions, for non-residential development. So for each one of the categories.
Manufactured?
Manufactured homes are captured with the single family.
When you're projecting value there, it might be just splitting hairs, but it would seem the manufacturers can be a lower value than the stick built home.
We're not projecting value, we're projecting square footages.
Value
What's
is
that
the
37 million?
So 37 million is the facilities of the district.
existing.
Okay.
plant,
Yep.
so.
Okay.
Right.
What we have now, and what we have, maybe a plan on the future.
So, so that was the first step, is understand how much development are we actually dealing with, right? And what will be the growth over the next 18 years? So that was step one. Then step two was to take the inventory of the district's facilities. The stations, the buildings, the apparatus, the ambulances, the equipment that they operate. And also project how much additional equipment is needed to serve the growth. Right, so all that adds up to about $37 million, the value of the system that the district operates. And then we looked at, okay, what are the resources that the district has available in the mitigation fee fund, the funds that have been collected. And that's not, compared to 37 million, not a whole lot, it's $141,000. So the, but that amount reduces kind of the net costs of the district's facilities. So the net cost of the district's facilities is $36.9 million. Okay, and that cost will be allocated to the entire development within the district, the existing and the future. Okay? So $36 million divided by 18.9 million square feet. And then we looked at how much demand is there for service for residential versus non-residential development within the district. And we looked at 2 years of data.
I'm missing something. You said it's based on the 18.9 million total development,
Yes.
or not just the 1.5 million? That's
That's
new.
gonna be the new.
Yeah, no, that's we take the entire cost of the facilities and we divide it by the entire development, existing and future. So because future development, you need,
Didn't you just say that if future development has to have, that's the nexus to determine updated fees?
correct.
So
So,
now you added the existing square
so,
footage too.
right, so we want to be fair to the future development, right? We don't want to allocate,
So then you, don't you then add cost that should have been already taken care of?
Money that's already been charged for the development fees for the people who have already existed,
correct,
already been paying.
correct. So,
So it should be,
Should that be just the cost for the new development,
no, no, no.
the 1.5 million?
So the way things work is we take the entire system into district, right? Because some of the existing stations and apparatus, they've been determined upsized to serve larger area than they currently serve, right? So they can accommodate some additional growth. In some areas that are currently receiving less service, more facilities will be added to serve new growth. So it's an overall system of the district, right?
To me, it sounds like you should be just basing it on the new 1.5 million of new square footage development.
So this would actually result in much higher amount for the new development and would not be fair to the new development.
Okay, so that's your, nice, understand.
Yeah, so our goal is to actually be as fair to new development as possible. And because the existing development and the new development, they receive the benefit from the existing facilities of the district and the future facilities. So we don't want just to take the future cost.
It's a blended value of
It's
the
a-
existing and the
Yes,
future.
yes, exactly. So otherwise, the new development will not be feasible in the district. So, and then the final step in calculation was to look at, is there a differential in terms of the call volume generated by the residential versus non-residential development? So we ran the analysis on the calls over the last 2 years, full calendar years, that's 2021 and 2022. This was done before the 23 was completed. We took out 2020 because it was not a normal year.
No.
Yeah. So we looked at 21, 22, how much call volume is generated by residential versus non-residential development. And each call was tied to a property address to the extent that we could do that. And there was, I think, about close to 80% of the calls had an identifiable property associated with it. And then other calls were intersection, block. For example, if there was a car accident, there's no specific address that responded to. So those calls were taken out, but everything else was allocated to see how much demand was being generated. And what we saw was the non-residential development is generating a whole lot more call volume than residential on a per square foot basis. So then we started looking at what is going on, what's happening. And it looks like a lot of times when the district responds to a call, it's to a resident that is at a non-residential place. So, and then there was estimates made, really to be fair, because otherwise the non-residential fee would be much higher than the residential fee. What would be the right allocation? And based on the analysis done by the district, it was determined that non-residential structures generate about 25% more call volume than residential structures. So, and based off of that, we did the allocation of the net cost, 36.9 million, across the 18.9 million square feet of space, adjusting for not residential versus non-residential. And the net cost allocation came out to $1.89 per square foot of residential development and $2.36 per square foot of non-residential development. So that's the cost allocation of the district facilities to the development within the area. Does this make sense? It's a lot of numbers, but so then we looked at, okay, what's happening, what are the trends in the area in terms of mitigation fees that are being charged by neighboring jurisdictions. So we looked at all the programs that were recently updated. So we looked at anything 21 through 23. And there was several agencies that we were able to identify that went through this process, and we looked at what did they end up with. So in Yolo County, two fire districts did nexus studies, Esparto and Willow Oaks. So they came with a flat fee regardless of the development type of $148 per square foot and $1.69 per square foot. The city of Wairika, they came out to $2.03 per square foot fee regardless of the development type. Then in Mendocino County, Anderson Valley Community Services District, their fees came out to single family $213, multifamily $254, retail commercial $214, and office $270 per square foot.
You would think that office would be less than retail.
So the last three were done by a company that utilizes a methodology we may not necessarily agree with. We prefer basing things on call volume, where there is a methodology in Nexus studies that they make a lot of assumptions in terms of how many people per square foot in office buildings and things like that. And those are not district specific. So we try to generally avoid using that methodology as much as we can. Just because it tends to it tends to skew towards the office, which may or may not be the right approach. And then Sonoma County Fire Protection District, and Sonoma Valley Fire Protection District, their fees came out to single family $1.75, $1.72, multifamily $231, $291 per square foot, retail commercial $1.95, and office $320 and $323. So those are the most recent updates to mitigation, fire mitigation fee programs.
They also done by that other company?
Yes. All fee programs had automatic inflation adjustment built into them. That's sort of, we're not aware of any fee program currently that's not adding inflation. And then all fee programs had administrative surcharge of between 2 and 4%.
I have a question. Like, for instance, Anderson Valley, did they provide EMS services too?
They do. They have a subscription service in their BLS. So when they roll out of Anderson Valley, they'll look at either MedStar or Ukiah Valley Fire somewhere in the Florida Valley. But they have a subscription service there.
And I think Sonoma does that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Sonoma County Fire is a consolidation of 7 different fire districts, and the chief plan is in the transition of that consolidation.
Does you read Wairika?
I would think so.
Why does this proposal take out multifamily?
I'm sorry?
Why does this proposal take out multifamily? It
So-
looks like it's a higher impact than single family. Why do you think it's good?
There's not a whole lot. If you look at the overall share of multifamily and how much square footage is within the district, it's not a meaningful amount. So the district doesn't have that as much multifamily as more urban areas.
But you guys are still projecting 20,000 square feet of multifamily per year, correct?
Correct.
And you don't see that as significant over the course of 16 years?
In terms of calculating the demand for service, in the global scheme of things, it's not as significant as single family. So it's hard to make a case based on data just because of how rural the family is currently in the district to make it into separate.
Your study didn't capture this past year when 2 major apartments.
Right, and there's just not enough data yet to see how much they generate.
It still seems to be a pretty big delta between what other communities have viewed the service call volume for multifamily versus single family. Are there any projections we can put to the projections in terms of square footage that you have here? So that we're not putting all the burden on single family?
We can look into that. It's just, so far, it's been so little multifamily data set that it didn't feel that it's a meaningful adjustment.
The next study though has to be redone within the next 8 years.
Yes, so,
So in 8 years or somewhere between 5 and 8 years, we'll have more data. There might be more development. And at that point, you know, if it's significant enough, the district could possibly look at an offset.
So in 8 years, if you do another nexus study and there is a difference, you're going to ask for another fee
yes.
adjustment, is that what you're saying?
So by Mitigation Fee Act requirements, now Nexus studies need to be yes.
You mentioned administration surcharge. Administration would seem to me to be akin to operations people working as opposed to construction of the building. So why is it okay to use that administrative surcharge?
So the Mitigation Fee Act allows to collect a small surcharge for the cost of complying with the Mitigation Fee Act requirements. So the mitigation fee study, the Nexus study, there's a cost with that. Reporting requirements, there's a cost with that. Every year, the district needs to prepare an annual report, the record keeping. So all those things, and really we looked at, the district had a pretty large year when the large multifamily properties were being permitted a couple years ago. And they collected $230,000 in mitigation fees that year. So in that year, the administrative component was about $4,000. The cost of the study is, in this case, it was beneficial because all 5 districts updated the studies at the same time. But you typically would see a cost of a study like this to be $15,000 to $25,000.
I noticed, I think, a page or two beyond here, not all of the districts in the county are charging that surcharge.
So currently, the mitigation fees here have not been touched for 31 years.
I think I read in, I don't know, another page forward or something that Lake County Fire had surcharge and I think Lakeport.
Oh, no, so that's a separate surcharge. That's going to be the next slide we'll talk about.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
I'll ask that question again.
Yeah, so on a, let's say a $2 fee, the administrative component will be 4 cents. So that's, it's a tiny little adjustment to that. So as I mentioned, all 5 districts went through the process. Because currently at the county level, all 5 districts have the same people. And by the current laws, you cannot have that. So it was time to update everything. So the district, each district ended up with their own fee amounts, depending on the property type. And some districts decided to keep the same fee across the board, the way it's currently collected. Others decided to create separate tiers, residential versus non-residential. So these are the fees that have been adopted by the districts and are now being sent to City of Clear Lake, to the City of Lakeport, and the county for adoption. So Lake County Fire Protection District, we talked about the cost allocation earlier, and then with the 2% surcharge, the proposed fee amount is $1.93 per square foot for residential and $2.41 per square foot for non-residential. And then Chief talked about having a ladder truck to be able to serve taller buildings that are 3 stories and higher, or large footprint non-residential buildings, which are 15,500 square feet or more. So Tractor Supply, Trader Joe's, the Dollar General, they all fall under that amount, the typical floor. So it really targets large, big box structures, Walmart, Target, that type of building. That's where they would need the ladder truck to be able to respond. So for buildings that are 3 stories and above and a large square foot non-residential buildings, footprint, right? It's not, if it's a taller but smaller, like a 2-story building that's smaller, it does not create a. But for the tall buildings and large buildings, there's a surcharge of 50 cents per square foot on top of the $9.93. So that's Lake County Fire Protection District. Kelseyville, They don't have much growth projected, much expansion of facilities. So it's $1.50 per square foot across the board, regardless of the development type. Airport is recommending $2 per square foot for residential, $2.45 non-residential, and the same surcharge for the ladder truck. North Shore, $2.02 across the board. And South Lake County, $2 for residential, $2.63 for non-residential. So all districts include a 2% average surcharge, and all districts include an automatic inflation adjustment into the fee schedule.
Well, let's tell me again about the 50-cent surcharge. So it's added to which things is it added to?
So it's, if a building is 3 stories or
So
higher,
3 stories or more than 15,000
15,500 footprint
footprint.
for commercial.
That would be the 50-cent surcharge just on.
Just yeah, well, on the fee, like per square foot.
On this,
Well, if it's 2-story, that's, you're only
it's 40
charging
foot.
a surcharge on the.
Yeah, if it's 15,500 2-story,
There's no,
it-
it's a
it-
3-story and the 15,000 together.
no, it's 15 footprint, 15,500 footprint.
So it could be 30,000 feet, 2-story, but it's only,
So it's the footprint. not
you're
the-
charging on 15,000
No, it will be charged on square footage.
on the 30.
Yes. on the- But it really is designed, it's very unusual for you to have an office building that's, 15,500 square footprint. So it really is big box retail that needs the reach of the ladder truck. All right, so, this is the proposed, fee schedule. So base fee per square foot, $1.89 for residential, $2.36 for non-residential, and high impact surcharge of 49 cents. And then administrative surcharge of 2%, 4 cents for non-resident, for residential, 5 cents for non-residential, and 1 cent for high impact surcharge. So the fee applies to all new development, the way we discussed. So government property is excluded, ADUs are excluded, and it has an automatic annual inflation adjustment. So finally, in terms of how much money we're talking about, over the next 18 years, based on the development projections, we're looking at revenues of $3.1 million. The planned facilities costs for the expansion of the system is $19.5 million. As we mentioned before, the district has about $181,000 in the HEP fund. So the district will still have to come up with $16.2 million of additional funding to expand their system. So with that, answer any questions.
I'm not quite aware of how your finances work, but do you get, is there for apparatus and stuff difference how you get for EMS services compared to fire services? I don't know, am I making myself clear?
No, so, I mean, funding, so our funding comes from our special tax or direct charges and then property tax. The EMS funding is fluid money that comes through, it's based on air mix, and that is, that's kind of anticipation. So that funding doesn't cover the cost of running that ambulance. So we crossed out our personnel for that. So every call costs the district about $1,090. That's based upon what we call ground emergency medical transport evaluation we did years ago. That's broke out fire and EMS. And the GEMT, ground emergency medical transport, and intergovernmental transfer breaks out a percentage of that fire district's operations, and that's what it costs you to run an ambulance for every transport, whether it's go 2, go 3. And the cost recovery that we get from that doesn't cover the cost of that transport.
So who pays that then?
It goes to the tax, it goes from our general fund. But we couldn't, EMS is something we couldn't not do.
No, I understand.
No, I'm just trying to explain is that, so we talked about that one-time funding. So years ago, it started what they call AB 677, and that was to allow fire departments to get some governmental support for those AR mixes that weren't reimbursing fire district for the services. Then went down the road and they came up with an emergency medical transport bill, which is kind of based on your AR mix. That got set aside and some more federal funding come down, and that's something we can have in the sidebar, but it gives us a little bit of operating costs, and that is what we look at replacing our ambulances down the road and buying the durable medical equipment. So a lot of our medical funding, we're able to fund some of that through that IGT process. But otherwise, it comes out of our general fund.
Currently, the payer mix in our district, about 80% of our payer mix is on Medicare, Medi-Cal.
Okay.
And our cost per transport reimbursement from that is about $300 per transport, correct? And so
So,
we've been covering it with the additional measure money, the additional, the
Is there-
property
is there-
taxes.
is there other way to get that funded?
No, I mean, it's, you know, it's been problematic for years, so, you know, those pair mixes, is there's no recovery because there's nowhere to get the money from them. That's kind of where IGT is just here for a period of time. We're not sure how long it's going to last. So we have been, we put some reserves for that long-term turnaround replacement of equipment that, you know, now we're using our general funds just to survive EMS that allows little to no money for equipment replacement. And then long-term, like we bought our Type 2 7021 in 2014 for $277,000. That engine right now is $675,000. And, you know, like I said, the operations don't, and the funds we get don't support the growth for our department. And we're not the only ones that are experiencing this, it's the right now.
It seems that there's a gap in that funding. Maybe.
I mean, there's still services provided, I mean, our goal is to provide service. You know, so the history of our fire department, 1942, there was no such thing as EMS. In the early 80s, some of the guys took the EMT program and it got a little bit into the EMS transport and that died. When I came on in 87, we didn't transport it all, we had private providers. The private providers couldn't survive within the paramedics. So when Rawls left March 22nd, 2004, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, our department went into emergency actions and staffed up. We borrowed an ambulance, we got our supplies together. And this is our 24th year, and I'm very proud of our department and the fire chiefs and what our EMS system is today, because we operate 9 ambulances 24 hours a day countywide, and we have at times provided a massive mutual aid to an MCI in another county. But, you know, none of the districts survive off of the recovery from the ambulance. And all of our taxes, special measures and everything support that. And when I look at over 80% of our EMS calls, if we were to stop EMS transport, you would have a huge fatality and morbidity factor because of these patients not getting transported. But I
That's a
did,
different problem.
yeah, that's a long run, but I did bring, you know, we put together, the board had asked for a copy of an annual report. And so we found a draft, and I really need to hand it to my crew. They went over and above with the production of this document, and I want you guys to look at, and a little bit over of what my overview was. And then Alan has a copy of our ISO rating, brought me 204. And then the one part I didn't get a chance to hit on is that really human factor that we do. Everybody's familiar with hospice, right? So we charge a very little rate for hospice patient transport from the hospital to home, from home to the hospital, doctor's appointments. But moreover, when it comes to that end of life, you know, we provide that service. A lot of people, even though they're in hospice, they're not ready for that last decision. And so my staff and I go out and provide that support as well as a chaplain. And then we just recently kind of put this together. This came from Southwood County in Mendocino. And it really is to kind of get with that hospice patient and their family and let them know just because you're on hospice doesn't mean you don't have a medical emergency. So you're terminally ill when you have shortness of breath. You still got to call 911 because, I mean, that's the quality of life at the end of the time. You know, so there's just, you know, a ton of things that we do. And it's, we coordinate. I mean, we're not running this stuff. We're coordinating with the city and the county and schools and everybody out there. And I'm just hoping you'll support us in this.
So,
Just say about the
one moment, Councilmember. We're at 6 o'clock. If I have consensus, I'm open to continuing with the conversation. There's some questions to be had.
What was that ISO you were talking about?
Oh, the ISO rating, sure.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
So the insurance service organization, identifies the severity of your community. So early in my career was all based on the fire department. We'd have to pour out one PowerPoint, we'd have water tenders flowing, we had a less amount of water for a period of time. In 2016, that all changed. The amount of drills your fire school has, it encompasses the entire community. We got extra points as we went to a new dispatch center that is fire-based, command center, and does those things. So, and then replacement of engines, and even though they're older ones, and staffing has dropped us to a 4, and I'm really proud of that for a small rural community to drop to a 4. And our goal is to continue to drop after every evolution. From 2017 up into the most current, we provided updates to ISO, different changes we had, different things were going on. And then with appointing Autumn as the fire marshal, that really brought that other aspect of plan checks and building inspections. In 2020, we were mandated to do inspections in every school, every hotel, every apartment. And so that increased a huge workload. But with her doing that and all those mandates being collected, we scored a lot of extra points. But it was a community effort. It's not just fire department based anymore, but it directly reflects your insurance or potential for insurance. They're always going to have that caveat of if greater than 1,000 foot or 5 miles. It really depends upon whose insurance company looks at the overall loss in the community. They're not going to insure 25 homes in one area because that could be a Copley Park fire and huge loss. They'll take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 out of that area. They'll cover those. But we do provide a one-on-one, you can second insurance. We'll give them the specifics, our auto aid agreement or auto mutual aid agreements, our response times, what alternate water supplies we have established. Sometimes they take us, sometimes they don't. And then the effort is that, our department is continuing to decrease our ISO ratings and the community working forward to drop down the risk.
Any questions?
Lot to ponder.
What's that?
Have a lot to ponder.
I did have one question looking at some of the numbers. So based on the numbers you showed, you can correct me. The current value of the department of the district is 18 million. And through this, you're expecting to raise 19.5 million to cover expansion. Is that correct?
So the expansion costs are defined as anything new that the district is looking to build. Also, as the district is replacing vehicles, apparatus, engines, the cost of the apparatus is so significant now that it's virtually impossible. So there's some financing that's involved in replacing apparatus. So if the existing apparatus was paid for with cash, when the replacement apparatus is being brought in, financing is required. So we assume a financing portion of flow in terms of the interest and fees that the district would pay for the replacement apparatus. That was added into the 16 for the system. That's how the methodology for it.
So just maybe I misunderstood it. I mean, you were saying that new equipment not replacing or repairing.
Correct, but the methodology of calculating allocating the cost of facilities is you take the entire facility base and you allocate it to everybody within the district, existing and future. Right. If we take the value of the district's existing apparatus, we have to assume that the value of the apparatus is impacted by the district having to finance it when they find it.
Can't close that door, man.
Can I leave the-
I leave it open.
From that standpoint, and the district assumed financing only half of the equipment they're purchasing.
If you remember though, I believe the 19 million was what we are projecting in cost or in future facility costs. But the fee is only going to generate, I think, 3.9.
And a little $16 million gap.
This is, yeah.
Doing
Big
it.
little
You know you can.
All right, council members, any other questions? City Manager, floor. Did you want to?
Well, yeah, I think we need to go over a few things. I don't know how much time you want to spend on, it, but I guess I'll start with the process. So this is a workshop. We have noticed so we have to do a 30-day notice, which happened before the public hearing. And so the next council meeting is scheduled for when you could take action on this. So, no ability to take action tonight. We'll have to do another notice before that. This is, I guess, to give a little bit of history, I think it's important to note that, this is the city's fee. The fire district doesn't have the ability to do it on its own. So it's your fee, and the city council is responsible for creating it and allowing the fire district to receive that fee. This was highlighted briefly, but there's also been some historical issues with the fee that's been collected that I think the council needs to be aware of. There's no one sitting around this table that was involved in what happened, but the fee that's been collected for a number of years is higher than what was authorized by the city in 1993. So just want to make sure that the council is aware of that, because this is ultimately your responsibility.
Forgive me, what was authorized in 1990?
Well, it's what was authorized in 93 depends on a variety of factors.
3 or 4 or 5 different
It's
pieces.
at page 3 of the Nexus reports. You can refer back to it, but there's, for example, single family residential under 20 feet high unsprinklered is 60 cents a foot, where like multifamily residential over 20 feet unsprinklered is $1.05 a square foot. So there's I guess 12 different categories with different fees, and but what's been collected for, I think, back into the early 2000s has just been a flat $1 per square foot.
And we became aware of this through the Nexus study, and we're doing our investigation and seeking legal on that too. So it wasn't anything, none of us in the room, administration, were aware of it. So this isn't anything that we're trying to cover up. It was brought to our attention through the Nexus study. And then if you look at our history in my previous administration, it paralleled with everything for the county, but there was a complete disconnect between the city and the fire department. But if you look at the history of what we did on routine every year with the county, it's just that the previous administration for the city and the fire department never bothered to pass that part on. So we, like I said, we are embracing it. We already advised our board chair of it and moving forward and, keeping the city in the loop.
So, I think the final thing I would say now, I know none of us have any question about the commitment, diligence, and effectiveness of the Lake County Fire Protection District, all they've done to, attack any number of problems in our community, whether it's wildfire or just the medical issues and so forth. There's a lot of rising costs. It already costs about $37,000 to get all your permit fees to build an average residence in the city of Clear Lake. How much can you squeeze from the turnip is the question that the council needs to consider. And I think, there's been a number of questions, and I have personal uncomfortableness about the way some of these formulas have been calculated. Myself, I think it skews it in a way that creates a larger fee. That's my thing, but I just encourage you to spend a lot of time looking at the report and asking questions, and I guess we'll bring it back up at the meeting.
Can we get a copy of the slide?
The
Can
what?
we get a copy of the slide that was presented?
Yes, they are all part of the agenda item on the website, but we can email it directly to you. Yeah, you're just talking about the ones that Dimitri presented.
You can have my copy.
I'm old-fashioned.
All right, so we're a little bit over time at this point. Are there any additional questions for the city manager or?
So are you, just another procedural thing, so you, since your boundary is bigger than the city, so I assume that you have to go through the same process with
Yeah, it'll be, yeah. You know, we have 165 square miles, and about 27 square miles of city. So there's a good portion of unincorporated areas.
what happened with the county city, you know?
But, you know, I guess the bottom line is, you know, that as you look at the city growing to development, the fire department best is what the long goal is, the fire department's not gonna grow to meet the needs of the community. That's really the most of life. You know, the city, if you had fees that you're increasing or even keeping the same, if you didn't increase those fees, you can increase your law enforcement, your clerical staff. I mean, we're in the same boat as the city. We're either gonna grow with the city or we're gonna be in a deficit to provide the service we do. But I guarantee we're seeing a 5 or 8% increase in our call volumes and more complex calls. So, I mean, it is your decision, and that is just, you know, looking at it from the point of view, same as the city, is you're not going to grow without increasing fees, and I'm not going to be able to grow without those fees as well.
And a typical, if I may, add, a typical, an average house size, the residential size as well, 1,600 square feet within the district. So the increase in the fee per home is about $1,500 or $1,600.
$2 a foot?
Yeah.
1,500?
Yep.
It's more closer to 3,000.
But there is a current fee in place.
It's just the increase.
Yeah, so only the increase. So the increase in terms of how much the home prices have gone up to how much the fee is increasing is.
And if it's, you say 37 or 57,000
30.
per permit fees, and our portion currently is 1,500 of that. But if we get squeezed out of it, then we're not receiving any funding for any.
Or we wouldn't be getting less funding.
Well, we wouldn't be getting less funding, but not necessarily anything significant.
I can't speak for the other, but my concern is that it's set the same for 30 years. It should have been addressed years ago. Thank you.
So we'll revisit this again in the next city council meeting. Before, we'd love to do a deep dive into the formulas at that meeting. So I think that would be.
And if there's anything you would like to discuss in written form, just let us know. And so during hearing, we can.
All right.
It's like a
So
5-minute break here. Right?
yeah, we'll have a 5-minute recess. Appreciate it.
I haven't got anybody else, so you get the first one.
For the breakfast?
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, Friday.
So let's know.
I mean.
I know you're talking about the,
Test, test.
If the city clerk's ready, I am.
All right, we'll return and move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Kramer, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd all remain standing for a moment. This week, our community lost Robert DeWalt. He was a very active member of both the senior board for our PEG TV station, and his family has meant a lot to this community. So if we could take a moment of silence and remember him and anyone else who may have lost recently. Thank you all. Moving on to item E, adoption of the agenda. Mr. Fleur, are there any changes to the agenda?
No modifications, Mr. Mayor.
Make a motion to accept the agenda submitted. Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Purdock, a second from Vice Mayor Overton. Please vote on your portal.
Aye.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you. Moving on to presentations. First, a presentation from the Lakeshore Lions to the Highlands Senior Center. Would the Lions please like to come forward? If you could also be joined by the board of the Highlands Senior Center, that'd be wonderful. And the volunteers as well. Thank you all for coming out.
More the merrier.
If you guys would like to grab the microphone here and.
Sure. I'm Ray Bridges, Lakeshore Lions Club. On behalf of the Lakeshore Lions Club, proceeds from our crab feed, we'd like to donate $5,000 to the senior center's Meals on Wheels. Wow.
So I'm going to step up here and I'm going to say thank you so much. Can I take this over here?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That is over 1,000 meals for our seniors, you know, and that's so you got to think that your donation is feeding 3 seniors for a whole year. You know, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but it's so much to us. You know, I mean, I'm so heartfelt that you guys have chosen us to help support us. We appreciate, you know, what you guys do for us and what you do for our community. So I just wanted to kind of introduce, there's some of our Meals on Wheels drivers here. So we have Jim here who does a route, Danda does a route, and Jean back there, not only does she does a route, but she also helps, and we have a new program called the Pause Program for our seniors, because during the pandemic, we found that they were feeding their foods to their animals. So she helped me get a program going, and lo and behold, Meals on Wheels of America has granted us a grant to help get that program really off the ground. So, you know, they're detrimental to our community for doing these meals that they do for our seniors. We serve over 200 meals a day, just Meals on Wheels. And in our congregate, we serve anywhere from 60 to 100. So, you know, there's sometimes we're putting out over 300 meals a day. So I don't think people realize how large our facility really is. But right now we're running out of the Masonic Lodge, but hopefully we'll be back soon to our regular senior center. We can get our kitchen done, so we're on the move. And then I have some of my board members. Actually, this is our president here, Stephanie, our secretary, and our treasurer is Joyce Adams, and we have Michelle, and then we have David up here. Our mayor is also on our board. So, you know, I want to just thank you guys so much, and, you know, we so appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you. Well, Vice Mayor Overton, if you and your crew can stay up front, as if by unique coincidence, March is the month for Meals on Wheels. So, whereas March 22nd, 1972, President Richard Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Older Americans Act of 1965 and established a national nutrition program for seniors 60 years and older. Whereas the Meals on Wheels Association of America established the National March for Meals campaign in March 2022 to recognize the historic month, the importance of Older Americans Act senior nutrition programs, and raise awareness about senior hunger in America. Whereas the 2024 observance of the March for Meals campaign provides an opportunity to support senior nutrition programs that deliver vital and critical services by donating, volunteering, and raising awareness about senior hunger. Whereas volunteer drivers for Meals on Wheels programs in Clear Lake are the backbone of the program, and they not only delivered nutritious meals to homebound seniors and individuals with disabilities, but also caring concern and attention to their welfare. And whereas senior nutrition programs provide nutritious meals to seniors throughout the city and help them to avoid premature or unnecessary institutionalization. Whereas senior nutrition programs also provide powerful socialization opportunities for millions of seniors to help combat loneliness and isolation. And whereas senior nutrition programs in Clear Lake deserve recognition for the contributions they have made and continue to make in our local community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Clear Lake does hereby proclaim March 2024 as March for Meals Month and urges every citizen to take time this month to honor our senior nutrition programs, the seniors they serve, and the volunteers who care for them. Our recognition and involvement of the National 2024 March for Meals campaign can enrich our entire community and help end senior hunger in America, so no senior goes hungry. Dated the 7th of March, 2024, and signed by me.
Get Alvaro up there. Good job, Mayor.
All right, moving on to item number 4, a presentation of the Clear Lake Integrated Preparedness and Resilience Plan for Dresden Mussel Management. Dresden.
This is about it.
Good evening. My name is Angela De Palma Dow. I am the Lake County Water Resources Invasive Program Coordinator, and I'm excited to be here tonight to be able to share.
Excuse me.
That wasn't me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so excited. Okay, so yeah, I'm excited to share about our response and containment plan for invasive quagga mussels. And I really want to thank, we got funding for this project through the United States Fish and Wildlife Service to create this plan. And then we got some great consultants from Creative Resource Strategies and Conservation Collaborations, Lisa Desbrequier and Leah Elwell. They live in areas that are under snow right now, so they could not participate. But I'm indebted to them and their expertise in putting this together. And if you have any questions or you think you see a quagga mussel or invasive mussel or something on the shore or in the lake and you're not sure what it is, if you follow us at Lake County Water on Facebook, you can just send us a message, ask what it is, and I'll respond very quickly. And if it's something really cool or unusual, I'll come out and look at it. So I encourage anybody to report stuff to us. Is the thing... Clicky click. Oh, too much. Go back. Oh. Okay, so this is the intro. It's only been about 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to first introduce our current prevention program. And briefly, I'm going to talk about how we developed our response plan. And there's going to be some specific points in the plan I'm going to point out. And then if there's any questions and answers. I'm not going to go in too much depth about our prevention program. I did do a presentation to the Board of Supervisors March 9th, 2021. It's the 1:30 item. So I talked about half an hour about our prevention program and how it works. So if anybody has any questions, you can always refer to that. And this is really what we're preventing and what we're planning for. So imagine Austin Park shoreline looking like this. All that work you guys put in to make it very accessible, kayak rentals, places safe to swim, and the shoreline looks like this because invasive quagga mussels, they live and then they die and they shed their muscles and they wash up on beaches. And this is basically a non-usable, non-accessible public space, among other impacts. And this is what we're talking about. These are what invasive quagga and zebra mussels look like. So they're very small. At the most, they'll get about 1 inch. And they have pretty sharp edges and they're striped, hence the name zebra mussel that they got. And they don't look like anything else that we have here. There's no native mussels that are this small. And they look kind of like really small barnacles. And you can see on the left bottom how they can colonize a boat prop that's been sitting in a water body that has infested with quagga mussels. And they can also colonize on living things, and basically they could suffocate this crayfish that they've colonized. So pretty bad critters for multiple reasons, and this is what they look like. If you see anything that looks like this, just let me know. Call me, report at Facebook, anything, get it to me.
What do you do when you find something?
We're gonna talk about that today.
Oh, okay.
That's a great question for this. So I want to shout out to our ramp monitor program. So the prevention program we have, we do not have quagga mussels. And this program works because our ramp monitors work. They are the essential bloodline of this program. I have about a staff of 14, they're part-time, and they live on the lake, they fish on the lake, they love the lake, and then they also now work on the lake for this program. And they do many things, inspect boats when they come in, they talk to boaters that are regulars, make sure they haven't left county somewhere else that's infested, come back. They also inspect things like we had a dozer that went in during the drought to do some lake work in a channel, and he was inspecting that dozer because it was going to go into our lake and wanted to make sure it was also invasive mussel-free. So they're a great team. I love them, and I just really want to give a shout out to all the hard work that they do. So there is a need to plan for a quagga mussel introduction, so thanks for the question. We are a fishing destination. People come from all over the country, all over the continent to come and fish in Clear Lake waters. So we get a lot of boaters every year from other places, and a lot of those places have mussels, and they come here, and so there is a need for us to prepare for the unfortunate incident that we get an introduction. And there's an economic toll to this. So we rely on more than just $1 million annually for just fishing dollars. So the cost for fishers that come here and spend money here in our county is estimated about $1 million. But of course, there's a lot of other uses for the lake, and people come to the county and enjoy the lake. And so that cost is a lot more than just that. To kind of back up on a broad scale, here's costs of invasive mussel management at the national, regional, and then state level. So nationally, it's about $140 billion in annual cost to just manage mussels once they're in a water body. In the Great Lakes Basin, which is a huge basin, all the Great Lakes have invasive mussels, it's about a $30 million annual cost just for the monitoring and control. And in California, the estimated mussel damage is about $30 billion just for drinking water systems. So not including recreation losses and all that, it's just for the drinking water systems. And unfortunately, these numbers are kind of outdated. They're 2012, so the cost of inflation and the spread has probably increased these. So when we look at Clear Lake, when boaters come from out of county, it's part of our screening program. They report where they were last. We want to know where you guys came from before you were here. We also track where they're registered, but we really want to know where they were before they came here. And so what this map is showing is all the locations of where they were before they came to Clear Lake for the different years we've been, the recent 5 years we've been tracking them for this program. So you can see there's a pretty good spread throughout the continent. And then we're going to put up a map that shows you the current spread of invasive quagga and zebra mussels. And so you can see the overlap here. So the green dots are the invasive zebra mussels, and the yellow-orange dots are the invasive quagga mussels. And I'd say the quagga mussels are probably more aggressive. There's been water bodies that have had zebra mussels, and then the quagga mussels come in and colonize over the zebra mussels, but they're both horrible. But you can see some overlap within where the boaters are coming from and where the mussels are located across the country. And there are mussels in California. So here in Southern California at the bottom is where we have quagga mussel infested water bodies. So anybody that's coming up here to Clear Lake from any of these counties or nearby counties, our ramp monitors are on alert. Our vendors that sell the stickers and do screenings are on alert, and they ask a lot of questions, and they'll do inspections on boats if it's been within a month's time that they've been down there, because we don't want any of those mussels moving up. And here we have an example kind of close to home in the Snake River in Idaho. Last year, there was a discovery of juvenile quagga mussels. So quagga mussels, when they're babies, they're microscopic and they float in the water, right? So the baby's released, they can float in the water, and then they can settle, and that's when they grow into their adult form of the little mussel. And so in Snake River in Idaho, they found juvenile quagga mussels doing some sampling. And basically what they did was shut down everything around that area where they found the mussel. So this had fishing bans, no hiking, no camping, nobody get close to this part of the river because we don't want to risk anything moving out of this river if there's mussels in that water.
Did they treat it then?
Yeah, they did. There's a treatment plan. The villagers can live in small amounts of water, so that's why they closed it, because if you have, a floaty tube and you fold it up and there's some water in there and it stays wet, that could transport mussels. And what they did is they did a treatment plan. The time that they found the mussels was close to the end of season. So they did a treatment as much as they could, but then the river and everything gets icy and snowy and ice is over, and they had to stop all treatments. And usually the juveniles don't live in cold water, so we're hoping between the treatment that they didn't spread. But we're not going to know until spring and summer when everything thaws out and they can do monitoring throughout the whole system. And then just to put this in perspective regionally is that the Snake River Basin goes through Utah, Wyoming, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. So potentially there could be mussels in that whole system. They are monitoring, but you saw the overlap from the map earlier, and there's a lot of boats that come from that area. So I'm not trying to put a whole bunch of gloom and doom at you, because now we're going to talk about the plan that we put in place to prepare for if there is an unfortunate introduction. And again, I really want to thank the funders at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for funding this project. And the participating agencies for this were Fish and Wildlife. They participated every single stage. So we had them review and approve everything that we did in this plan in this final form. But California is very different than the rest of the Western U.S. states in that California CDFW doesn't have a statewide strategy for if they get mussels. It's basically water body by water body, and it's the local agencies that are supposed to come up with kind of their response plan and kind of foot the burden of that, at least at this point in time. We also had some other participation from Lake County tribes, Clear Lake water purveyors around the lake, and then regional water districts and governments. And we were grateful to Yolo County Conservation, Flood Control Water Conservation District for participating, Sonoma Water, Solano Water District, and the City of Lakeport for participating. And then we had 2 webinars so the public could participate and provide information. Particularly, we really wanted to hear from businesses and organizations that depend on the lake economy, lake ecology, and how a quagga mussel introduction would impact them, their business, their livelihood. So these both are recorded and on our website. The Water Quality Wednesday is in several locations, so if anybody wanted to review those. But we really value the feedback we got from having those 2 public opportunities. And this was not just important for getting information to put in the plan, but it was really helped us explore the best way to communicate with the public. So if we have an introduction or we have a scare of an introduction, how do we get that message across? What are the avenues that work best? And so that these exercises are really helpful for that. We also had an actual work through scenario exercise. So in June, we had basically working meetings, and we had 6 scenarios, like a quagga mussel was discovered here in this bay. What do you do? And we walked through the step with the state and all of the agencies here about what some of the roles would be and how we would do that response, that verify that detection. And that was a super valuable exercise for us to actually see what are the things that we need to know, what do we not know, and what do we need to address in the plan. And this, our consultants put together an after action report for that exercise, and that is available on our website too, and of course is incorporated into the plan. So if you want any info on any of this, these are several resources. Pretty much everything is on our website at www.nomussels.com. You have to make sure to spell mussels correctly. And then clearlakemusselsprevention.org is our current website for this plan development. However, we are going to be transitioning everything to be under our website at a future time. And anybody, anytime, could message us on Facebook or come to the office at 3rd floor in Lake County Courthouse and talk to me if they have questions about mussels. So right now I'm going to go into a few slides to actually present some of the key points of the plan. And I want to say that I sent hard copies to the council in January. You guys all received that and had good fun read through it? Yes? Okay. We also, I think I sent you a couple extras so you can have for if any public wants to come read it. The draft version has been online on our website since August. And then we always have hard copies available for checkout or for reading at the Lake County Courthouse at our office. And so this is our plan, and it is an integrated preparedness resilience plan, and it's basically for a rapid response and transition to containment plan. So the goal of this was to figure out the steps of how we go from our current prevention plan with the staff we have under this program, and if we get mussels, what we wanted to prevent was the state coming in and shutting down our lake completely for an unknown amount of time, but that we could pivot into a containment plan so boaters could still come and use the lake and then leave mussel free, and we could still kind of maintain our way of life without a long-term shutdown. So that was the goal, of having a plan to kind of work through that, what those steps are. So that's why it's a rapid response and containment plan. And it really provides the guidance to partners and other entities that really demonstrate how we're going to effectively respond to an introduction or a detection, and then minimize spread. So we're not being a source of mussels through the whole Northern California region. And the plan really emphasizes some of the impacts of mussels. So we talked about these and showed some examples, but these are all the ones that are listed specifically in the plan. So disrupted food chain. So mussels would have unpredictable effect on our fisheries here. They would compete with fish for food, and we'd probably see a drop in our game fish once we get mussels. Mussels are not a preferred food source for fish, so they're not going to eat them. There's a couple fish that will eat them, but they're not going to help our game fishery. You will see a reduction in property values because beaches are going to be covered with shells. Increased cost to maintain docks and ramps because they will colonize on that infrastructure. We talked about the beaches with hard shells. Obviously, loss of revenue to Lake County communities with reduced lake use. And then increased costs for drinking water systems. So we already have some of the highest rates in the state. There's a study, there is a study that identified that California has the top drinking water rates from Clear Lake. And if our drinking water purveyors had to now do maintenance on their pipes and their intakes, scraping off mussels, extra treatment for bacteria and disease that the mussels could introduce, that might just bankrupt some of these systems. There might be fishing, tournament, and boating restrictions. So even if we can, wash every boat that leaves the lake, the state might restrict how many tournaments we have, just so they can manage that traffic better. So that might be overall less visitation to the lake. And then, of course, any boats that sit in the lake would be encrusted with mussels, and that's another cost to individual property owners for having to maintain. Nothing like buying a $70,000 boat and then the prop gets damaged from mussels. So ClearLakeMusselsPrevention.org is the website that was built for this plan development, where we put all the deliverables, all the processes that we did, and all the resources that we used. This was the outline for the plan, all of the sections that we went through. And then now I'm gonna have a few slides that go through some of the recommendations. So we really recommended a rainy day emergency fund that was separate from our prevention program funds to have in case we did get an introduction of mussels. We would be ready with that money to be able to do any response needed. The state does not currently have a rainy day fund for mussel introduction for lakes. They only fund prevention programs. They don't fund responses at this time. So this would include maybe consider changes to the mussel sticker pricing. We really don't want to do that. Anything that adds more cost makes it harder for people to afford, and then also it could deter people from the program entirely, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep people being able to participate in the prevention program and get their boat screened because it's easy and affordable. And then, of course, we can consider county ordinances that can establish special fees for tournaments. We've kind of toyed with that. Again, we don't really want to deter people from coming here and having stuff cost more, but that might be a source of some of this revenue for the rainy day fund. We definitely are looking into developing or putting in some permanent decon stations. And if there's anywhere around the city of Clear Lake where you have some lands that you want to put a permanent decon station where we can have either a dip tank for boats or a large container that has decontamination, let me know, because I think a permanent decon station that's staffed would be an easy way for us to switch from a prevention program. We do decontaminate and wash down boats that come into county, but if we had to wash every single boat that left county, if we got mussels, having permanent decon stations is the key to that. Right now, we only have mobile stations, and that would be really hard for us. Some of these tournaments bring in like 1,000 boaters. We possibly can't decon 1,000 boats, with the tools that we have right now. So permanent decon stations, selection of locations and installation is one of the high recommendations that was a result of this plan development. Having additional signage, so this is more with inspection or with prevention program, and we have a billboard on I-5, and so we're trying to expand that network and get more billboards out there to increase the prevention awareness. Can it go? I push all my buttons, I'm at a loss.
Okay.
Thank you. So there's something else that we had a recommendation. So red ear sunfish are one of the only species that known to feed off of quagga mussels. And so CDFW suggested maybe establishing habitat enhancement programs for red ear sunfish. They're not a native species, so we don't want them to overpopulate, and maybe at one point they don't like mussels and they eat something else, and then there's too many of them. So this is just something that to think about in case we do get mussels as a way to control that population. Next slide, please. And then, of course, they recommended, or the recommendation is for collaboration. So some of those scenario workshops that we did, doing those regularly with regional staff. There's turnover at state agencies, regional agencies, and even local agencies. So keeping up with those scenarios, so we're all prepared in case there is an introduction, we're ready to go and everybody's fresh with what those steps are. Next slide, please. And then one of the important recommendations was kind of based off ICS incident command protocols, is doing equipment inventory, seeing where there are decon stations in other places. In case we get an introduction, say before we have time to install our permanent decon stations, if we need to borrow a bunch of decon stations from Berryessa or Mendocino or another part in Northern California, we want to have that already set up and have those relationships built so we can have that fast response. And then, of course, there's some local ordinance recommendations that can be updated. So one of the things is to make non-motorized boats participate in the screening and sticker program. Right now, kayaks are exempt from the program, but kayaks have come a long way since our ordinance was built. So there's a lot of pedals, cubbies, lots of places on a kayak where there could be muscle transportation. So getting stickers, requirements for these non-motorized vessels might be another way to generate some revenue for rainy day fund and also make sure that we're protecting our lake. There's also some other things in the ordinance. We're working on the lake bed or shoreline ordinance updates right now. And so having some requirements in there for property owners that have ramps for either POAs or Airbnbs have signs on their ramps saying that you have to have a sticker and have to be screened before you launch. There's no current requirement for that right now. And then we're also want to get information distributed to people that have home rentals on the lake. So when people come in and they're staying there bringing boats, kayaks, all the same things, they have that information there at the location that they're staying about how important it is to keep mussels out of the lake. Next slide, please. So these are some of the take-home messages from the recommendations from the plan. So Lake County will really lose all our state prevention funding once we get quagga mussels. So the way that the state funds work right now is every year we get about $400,000 from the state to maintain our prevention program, but those are prevention dollar funds. As soon as they find out that we have a mussel in the lake, they cut off those funds. And those prevention funds go from keeping our ramp monitors employed, keeping them out there on the lake, as well as my role, my technician's role, our monitoring role for watching the lake for mussel introductions. A state recommendation, so this came from CDFW, was to encourage more collaboration between Yolo County and Lake County, and actually putting more emphasis on Yolo County, doing a little bit more for mussel prevention and being involved in response. So because they are the receivers down Cache Creek of Clear Lake water, and they have a large water right on Clear Lake, their responsibility is shared for preparing for an introduction. And that was a state recommendation. And then Lake County will play a lead role in introduction. This is going to be in partnership with CDFW, but it's not like other states in the Western US where the state will come in and take charge and make sure that the lake is still able to stay open and install decon stations. That is not the role that CDFW and the state plays in California so far. So it would be a lot of those decisions would be on the local agencies. And then leveraging resources and partnerships with neighboring water bodies. So I have to maintain these relationships with the water bodies and making sure everybody around us doesn't have mussels and that they all have programs and how their programs are doing and they have decon machines that work and do they have staff that's inspecting boats, and if they don't, they need to let us know so we can watch out for boats coming from there. So that's a lot of work to make sure that we're keeping up that vigilance level, and that's something that we have to do. I just want to bring your attention to the dollar sign on the right. So we get revenue from the sticker program, and the way the stickers work are they're basically sold through participating vendors. We have about 30 vendors around the lake, bait and tackle shops, mom and pop hardware stores. Boaters come in, they fill out a form. If the boat needs to be inspected, they'll call a county inspector, and then the vendor can sell a sticker. The sticker is $20, whether it's a boater that lives here in Clear Lake or lives or comes from another county. And a portion of those funds the vendor gets to keep. So there's this buy-in. They're making money from the sticker sale. And And some of these bait and tackles make a good, 10, 12 grand a year. That's enough for part-time staff during the summer, keeping the lights on. So if we get quagga mussels in the lake and we don't have a sticker prevention program anymore, there's going to be significant loss to some of these local businesses around the lake. In addition, the county gets a portion of that sticker sale, and that's what helps support the rest of the program, because the state grants don't cover the whole program. So we're looking at a loss to the public agencies about $1 million. This is over like a 5-year period is how I did these calculations. So loss to the public sector of the sticker program, about $1 million. The private sector will lose about $500,000. And I will say that of that $500,000, $800,000 of that is generated by visitors. That's both of them, sorry. The $1.5 million, the public and private sector, $800,000 is generated just by visitors for over a 5-year period. And then our grant funding every year, or over the 5 years, is averaged about $1.25 million. So those are funds that come from outside the county, come into the county. Our ramp monitors, they live here, they spend that money. All that money is coming here for us to maintain that program. And then we can't put a price on the ecosystem loss. So what would it cost for us if all of our beaches had shells and we couldn't enjoy, the lake as we know it today? Next slide, please. So some of my next steps, I took this plan to the Board of Supervisors in October and was instructed to get city and tribal review and input. And so that is my step right now with you today. And to get feedback, any comments, any of your concerns, I want to make sure that they're captured in this plan and that you are in full understanding of what this plan entails and next steps if we do get an introduction of mussels. And then we do have a grant for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service federal funds again in April. And I am going to apply for the maximum amount of that grant and start getting ready on those decontamination stations. And also if there's anything else that is needed from your feedback today, I want to make sure I'm incorporating that as I go forward and get these grants. And then within 6 months, we are going to consolidate the website that was made for the plan development into our website. I don't like having like 10 websites for the same thing. And then we're hoping to get an adoption from the Board of Supervisors in June and July. And what that'll mean is, let's say we do get quagga mussels and the state wants to come in and take charge. We say, hey, we have a plan, you guys approved it. Let us take some control of our local resource here and have a say in what goes on. We want to keep our lake open and we have the steps outlined so we can maintain our way of life, but also protect the region from quagga mussels. Next slide. I think it's just, yep. So right now I will take any questions and my contact information is on the screen. You can email, you can call me. Again, go on Facebook if you want to send a message or send us a picture of something on the lake if you're not sure what it is. And with that, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Overton.
Well, one, thank you. This woman is the god of the waters. I feel that way. She is.
Goddess.
You're the goddess of our waters. She is wonderful, and you've done a wonderful job on putting all of this together. So
Thank
I'm
you.
very appreciative. One of the things I'm looking at, since this is could be a tourist thing, and I know we have our TOT taxes, that things, it's like, I think maybe that might be something that the tourist committee might want to look at to say, is there any type of funding that they can maybe set aside for an emergency situation? Because that seems to be like one of our problems for funding, is looking at what are we going to do for emergencies if something happens. So maybe that's, since it does have to do with tourists, maybe that is something you guys might want to talk about at your meeting. So I'm throwing it out here because I got some of them that sit on that meeting. So suggestion. So, but I really think you've done a fabulous job, and I really appreciate all your hard work. So
Thank you, Councilmember Overton.
I have 2 questions for you, and you may have already mentioned it, but in terms of proximity, what bodies of water around Clear Lake have mussels in it right now?
So right now, there are none in Northern California.
Okay.
There is a reservoir, San Justo Reservoir, which has zebra mussels, and that's in Central California. And that actually has been totally closed off. So it's shut down. Nobody can get in or out or use that water body because there's zebra mussels. I think it's a drinking water reservoir. I think there's some filtration for some drinking water on it, but it's not used for any recreation. That is the closest water body to us. And the next closest water body, again, is like 7 hours away. So I think down in Riverside County. The issue with the ones in Southern California is a lot of those water bodies are connected, State Water Project, canals and things. So there's a large connected network of water bodies, and some of them have a definitive mussel detection and are considered infested. And then there's ones that are connected that don't, which means the monitoring agencies have not found anything, but they're connected aquatically. What we do with our quagga mussel monitors is any of those that are connected from any of those counties down there, that's red alert. And we look very carefully at those boats. We ask the boaters a lot of questions. One thing I didn't touch on in this, but we are transitioning to a digital system as part of the Colorado State Parks watercraft inspection database. So all the participating western states in this database, particularly ones that have infested water bodies, will track when a boat comes in and leaves, and we have that database. So if we see a boater on the ramp, we type in their CF number, and it can tell us right away where that boat was. Some boats or some lakes aren't on that, and a lot of them are in the Northern region that don't have mussels, but the ones that are infested are on there. So we can tell right away if someone's been in an infested water body through that system. And so we're transitioning to that, and it'll really help us track these boats and see where people are coming from.
Wonderful. Well, you're doing amazing work. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. You said you had 2 questions. You only gave me one?
Yeah, but.
Did I make you forget the second one?
Yeah, the second one was more, you already answered it,
Okay.
but for the decontamination
Okay.
facilities and the stations, you think that you'll be able to get the grant for that and that will fund it 100%? Or would you need input from city and county?
So the process for that is this plan just covered the site selection. So we want to pick locations that are easy for people when they're coming into county or leaving county to stop at. Then we have to plan, is there access to facilities? Because when you have a decon station, you have to have sewage, because you have to have water treatment, you have to have a water source, you have to have enough space for there to be parking lot. Boats take up a lot of space. You guys know that. Redbud Park can get filled up pretty quickly, even though it has a huge parking lot. So we need enough space. We'll probably have to do some land acquisition grants once we get designs for these areas. So there's multiple steps. It's not going to be completed in one grant.
Gotcha. All right. Oh, we have a question?
Well, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One, love trying to keep local control, so thank you for that. On the decon stations, I definitely think we'd be interested in talking about location at Redbud Park. I think there's a number of options there. And then also believe the short-term rental education is a really smart move. At this point, I think the city is the only jurisdiction in the county that registers short-term rentals. And so we would have a pretty easy process to be able to share that information with folks who are renting. Just wanted to share that with you.
So is that something like I provide either hard copy materials or digital copy materials, and that gets out to them?
Yep.
Ooh, okay, great.
Councilmember Purdock.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm grateful you're going after the short-term rentals. Is there any material that could be shared, say, in a tax mailer for all the property owners that would get this information out? There's so many private boat ramps around the lake, and I just see that as a real weak spot.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. What we do at Lakebed Management currently is, because we have a program where all the shoreline properties have to pay a lease, we do an annual mailer to them because we have to put in there, oh, you're going to get a bill soon for your lakebed lease. And then I always write a letter every year, have for about 5 or 6 years. I talk about cyanobacteria, water quality, aquatic plants, and I always have a big section there about quagga mussels. I probably this year, because this plan will be out, I'll probably do a flyer information just for mussels. So that's one way that we get all the properties that are on the lake. The problem with that is not everybody that lives on that unit in the lake is getting that letter. So I have to, that is a double step then, is sending it to the property owner and then the parcel address. But I'm going to write that down because that's a great idea, and I'll make sure that this year when we're budgeting for that lakebed letter, as part of this plan outreach, we'll include that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I know of neighbors that allow their boat ramp to be used by people who don't touch the lake.
Oh, where's that address?
Not address, just friends.
Place, friends, okay.
Friends and neighbors.
You tell them to watch their boats.
That's why I suggested.
Yes, thank you.
The property tax, so people who aren't necessarily touching the lake would also
Right.
be made aware. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again so much for coming out.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, moving on to public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the city council on any matter that is not on the agenda, that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the city, the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. If you're participating via Zoom, you can leave a comment in the tool on your Zoom bar. Are there any comments here in the chamber? Please come forward. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments come through on Zoom? There is.
One moment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a comment here? Why don't you come forward, and please state your name and city of residence.
Yeah, hi. My name is Liza Chavez, and I am resident of Clear Lake for the past almost 18 years. Although I don't really, I work in San Francisco, so a lot of the times I stay mainly in San Francisco, and I come here on the weekend. I own a house not far from here, but I'm just gonna read what I wrote. I was gonna send it to somebody in the in your group, but I didn't get the real email, so this is regarding the animal services in Clear Lake, and basically, and I hope this letter is not going to be, offending anyone. But currently, Clear Lake relies on a nonprofit organization, which I believe they call the North-Based Animal Services, and act as a third-party service for the animal services on animal control. However, I have personally experienced multiple instances where the response has been very inadequate, especially when it comes to addressing cases of animal neglect and abuse. Specifically, when I report dogs being neglected without proper food, water, or care, although I'm directed to contact the nonprofit organization. I went to the nonprofit organization like over a year ago to talk to the person who's in charge of that organization, which is Mr. Mark Scott. I explained the situation about this backyard breeding of Buster Terrier dogs being very neglected with no food, no water. I requested to help me to maybe retrieve those animals, having the mother or spayed or neutered, vaccinated. I was willing to pay for it, but they never done anything about it. It's over almost 2 years now. It's in constant, it's really filthy where they live, full of garbage behind. I call code enforcement, I call the police. I actually asked to somebody who is in charge partially of that nonprofit, or they communicate. They're like a bridge between the animal services and the police. I talked personally, on the phone with the lieutenant, which Peterson, I believe his name, and I requested to help me with the animals. Nobody wants to do anything. There is so much apathy about the animal welfare, the animal care. It's so disheartening for me to see the inaction, totally inaction about animals. And I don't understand what is the issue, why it cannot be resolved the problem. The North Bay Animal Services, I inquire a lot of organizations in the Sonoma County area to see why that organization is servicing other counties, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do, which is help or even educate the public about animal services or animal care. They're not doing anything. There's so many animals in Clear Lake running free, abandoned, cats and dogs, animals on the highway. There's nobody to call. I see dead animals, they can sit there for weeks. That's not a way of a society that has to live that way. There has to be some concern from the people in Clear Lake. Somebody has to do something and take the initiative, perhaps to get the people in the city, get them together, neighborhood by neighborhood, canvass people, to do a canvassing to support the animal welfare.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So we have a 3-minute limit. Thank you for making us aware.
That's the issue that I came today to talk about it. Besides the police department, the animal services, and of course, the code enforcement. You know, somebody has to do that, and somebody needs to help on this, especially that I see every day. I give them addresses, I give them pictures, and nothing has been done.
All right.
So I hope I can, come up with a resolution and do something about this issue with the animals.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Any other comments here in the chamber? All right, Madam Clerk? Anything on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom related to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we'll move forward to item H, the consent agenda. Does any council member want to pull something from the consent agenda? Any member of the public? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion from Councilmember Kramer, a second from Councilmember Slutin. Please vote in your portal.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 10, consideration of a resolution which designates the city manager or his or her designee to act on its behalf to engage with California Native American tribes as part of government-to-government tribal consultation. City Manager Flora.
Actually, if you don't mind, Mayor, I'll take this one. So at the suggestion of our consultant in consultation with her, with Lisa Westby, we thought it would be helpful to clarify the roles in terms of delegation of authority when it comes to tribal consultation. And so while we're working on those tribal consultation guidelines, we thought that it made sense to have some clarity as to who has some authority when it comes to those consultation. And because of limited staff, it made sense for the city manager to be that person. It also says that it could be the city manager or his designee, if that's the case. Certainly, the city council can participate in consultation and has done so before. We just run into some issues there, mostly when it comes to Brown Act, right? So a majority of you could not sit and consult on not just tribal issues, but really anything without agendizing a meeting. And so if the mayor or one or two council members wanted to participate in that, that certainly would be within your discretion. But it really made sense between myself and our consultant to designate formally somebody while those guidelines are being worked, and that person to be the city manager based on his experience. And again, we don't have an assistant city manager or other level persons to fill that role. And if there's any questions or comments about that, I'm happy to answer them. But it seemed to make sense and was a good practice moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions from the council? Councilmember Slutin.
We received today a letter from the Koi Nation, and that states that they don't want to deal with our city manager, basically. Can we ask the same thing of them? That we don't want to.
I mean, you could ask, certainly. It's kind of like them asking you who you choose. I think it's your discretion. Likewise, it would be their discretion. But if there's a certain person you wanted to, you can make that suggestion. I don't know that it would be answered.
I know.
But yeah. One other comment I want to make is clearly there's certain items that cannot be delegated from the city council or the planning commission when it comes to approving the environmental document or approving a project. That is not what's happening here with this action.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Madam Clerk, anything on Zoom?
There is one statement on Zoom from Curtis Vandermolen. The Koi Nation of Northern California appreciates the opportunity to present the following written comments on items listed on the City of Clear Lake's agenda for its March 7th, 2024 regular meeting. On this item, consideration of Resolution 2024-10, which designates the city manager or his/her designee to act on its behalf to engage with California Native American tribes as part of government-to-government tribal consultation under applicable law. Under both state and federal law, tribal consultation is government-to-government consultation in a respectful effort to reach mutual agreement. See e.g. Pub Res Code in section 21080.3.1, Government Code section 653.52.4. While governmental staff may assist decision makers with gathering information and developing potential alternatives, actual decisions must be made by the government's respective elected officials. And that ends the comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just to clarify, Mr. Jones, the decisions are still being made by the City Council, correct? This is just an information gathering process. Wonderful.
Which means that we're not, what that letter says, we're not impacting that. Still rests with the council to make the decision. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion if we're done talking about it.
Any other comments from the council? Vice Mayor
Really
Overton?
clarify. So during the consultation, give me a process of what as you're sitting in there, if there becomes a decision that needs to be made, it comes back to the council, or are we giving him permission to make the decision? And what kind of decisions are we giving permission for you to make if that's what it is? Because that's what I'm getting, right? So.
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on the situation. I mean, normally speaking, I don't attend to most of the tribal consultations. Normally, it's someone from our planning department and public works department that gather information, share information on the project that we're talking about, and then bring that back and we discuss and look at the facts that have been presented, look at the other information that's been provided related to cultural resources. Obviously, you know, a big part of that, not the entire part as is often accused, but a big part of it is looking at the, you know, archaeologist report, that type of thing. And then, you know, it is staff decision on crafting mitigation measures that we think are appropriate, which are then presented to the Planning Commission. And really, the council only sees those if it comes back on appeal, or, you know, there are some types of things that would come forward to the council. But so that's kind of how the process works. I mean, consultation, by its very definition, is, you know, sharing of information. So, you know, I suppose there could be some decisions made at the table, like, you know, we expect you to do this, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you know, thanks, we understand your position, we'll consider that, and that would either be worked into a mitigation measure or not. If that helps explain it.
Yes, that does. Thank you very much.
Final approval of mitigation measers and any
To the
comes originally to the Planning Commission
Planning
and then
Commission.
eventually to, it has to come to some body, governmental agency.
I think that's covered in paragraph 3 of this resolution.
thought you guys were going to be making like all these decisions, and I wanted to make sure that it was very clear that's not what was happening. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I
Vice
do
Mayor.
want to point out that the gentleman on Zoom has put additional comments in, but it looks like it's just a copy and paste from the letter that was sent to you today. So I guess it's your discretion whether you want to, you know, have the clerk read the rest of that or.
Well,
refer to the letters.
I believe all council members have received that letter already, so we've had a chance to review it. So thank you, City Manager Flora. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none?
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-10 and read by title only, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clear Lake delegating the city manager or his/her designee to act on behalf of the city for tribal consultation.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Councilmember Kramer, a second from Councilmember Slutin. Please vote in your portal.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Moving on to item 11, consideration of fiscal year 2025 community project funding request to Congressman Thompson. Councilmember, City Manager Flora.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So it is that time of year again. We received information from Congressman Thompson about community project funding requests, which are due the 15th of this month. So just quick rehash, what's considered the 2023 funding cycle, which is almost 2 years ago now. The city received $2 million for the Burns Valley Sports Complex. After the staff report was drafted, the city received notice that the congressman was able to allocate an additional just over $4.1 million for the Burns Valley Sports Complex in the past year's funding cycle. And that's been delayed because, you know, Congress hadn't passed a budget until, I guess, maybe it's almost through this week. But the congressman is confident enough about this that he let all of us know that was happening. So anyway, moving forward with the requests for this year. So staff didn't have a specific recommendation, and I think there's a number of things that the council should consider. The last couple of years, we've put sort of all of our, you know, marbles into trying to get additional funding for the sports complex. You know, as you know, the delays that we've suffered have pushed the cost of that up, so there's still a shortfall. Initially, I'd come into this expecting that, you know, the congressman probably was looking for other projects. However, in talking to his staff just yesterday, you know, I shared the concern, you know, as the congressman feel like that we've kind of, you know, gotten our due for the last couple of years. And for context, he's only allowed to ask for $15 million a year for his whole district. And so, you know, he's treated us quite well. The answer I received was, don't shoot low. Congressman Thompson thinks that the city of Clear Lake has, you know, I guess, not gotten what it deserved over the years. And so don't be afraid to ask for what you want. So you could consider asking for more money for that project. And I think we have a few other ideas, but one thing that I wanted to start with is a request that kind of initially came up through the Blue Ribbon Committee. And so that there's a number of sort of algae mitigation projects that they considered. And then due to kind of a drawback of state funding, they haven't been able to move forward with too many of those. I think they are moving forward with the oxygenation project in the Clear Lake Keys over in Clear Lake Oaks. But we had been approached by the committee and some consultants about a couple of other options. I think you're all familiar with the LG Sonic option, which kind of came through this process as well, and which is currently being considered by the county for funding. And this is an algae harvesting concept. And you know, it kind of been put on hold, but it sounds like the congressman's office may be interested in considering this. And you know, it's a little different than what you may have pictured from years past related to algae harvesting. And talking to some of the council members about it, I thought it's probably best just to have the expert give a little overview for the council on this project, have you ask a few questions now. You know, we don't have to solve all of the technical problems today. We need to decide whether you think that this is something that you would like to move forward with. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan Levy, if that's okay. And he's going to, I think, share maybe a short video and then present a little information and then address questions. But I guess before we get into that, one last thing I want to say is I think that while we've done this the past couple of years, the council doesn't need to commit to one specific project. I think, and I confirmed this with the staff, if you would like to submit a few sort of priority projects, that's fine, and then the congressman can pick the ones that he thinks you know, might be most suitable for being approved. So with that, I would like to turn over to Dan, and he can give us an overview. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. Can everybody see me or hear me on the phone? through Zoom?
Yes, we can see you.
Perfect. If you have a couple of minutes, I do have a couple of slides I'd like to show, if that's okay.
Oh, please, absolutely.
All right. Let me know when you can see the slide.
We can see it.
Okay. All right. What I wanted to do is just provide a little bit of background for those that might not know our company, the technology, and what we believe to be some good next steps for Clear Lake. I'll go through this pretty quickly. AECOM is a Fortune 500 company. We do about $11 billion a year, and we're the only firm of this size that have been invested for the last 7 years in developing technology to address this global issue. We started this project in Florida and worked around the country. These are just areas we'll be doing work and have done work. The technology itself, as Alan pointed out, is essentially harvesting intact algae cells, the microscopic algae that's in the water. And if I can draw your attention to this jar that says lake water, that's essentially, in this case, full of algae. The process that we use clarifies that. It returns clean water back, which is the center jar, and returns and captures the algae slurry, which is in the jar to your right. And that's essentially what we have here down in this picture. If you can see the cursor, and then goes through a dewatering process that turns it into a biosolid. And it's important for several reasons, but by doing this, we're able to take the nutrients that feed the algae out of the water, and we can return clean water back, which provides benefit, and we can valorize the algae biomass to other products. Case in point, right now algae is being used in a lot of footwear. It's being used in sustainable agriculture, and our work with the Department of Energy and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is turning it into biocrude. Just to give everybody a little bit of a picture of how this system has worked, I have a couple of photos or a little video here. This is a project we did up in Cincinnati. This was taking algae from the water and turning it into crude oil in the same day. We had representatives from the Department of Energy, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife, the governor, the first lady of the state. This is an algae biomass that comes out through the harvester. You can kind of see some of the demonstrations that we do. This garners a lot of media attention because of its innovation and its ability to rapidly take out nutrients by taking out the algae. So these are groundbreaking for that part. We have finished a project in Florida, which you're looking at the screen now, is over by the Kennedy Space Center in the Intercoastal Waterway of Florida, where we're putting our harvesters now on barges to access large volumes of water. So we're able to work in both fresh and saltwater areas. That lady in the pink is Senator Debbie Beefield for the state of Florida, who's in charge of the appropriations. But as you look through this, you can kind of get a sense of the activity, amount of interest from the public, from the scientific community that follow us and look through this. I think this provides a good interaction, good public outreach to explain how the process works, and that's the clean water coming out. This is the hydrothermal liquefaction process. This is where that trailer had it, where we actually use heat and pressure to take the carbon bit in the algae. An algae cell itself has about 70% carbon, and we take those carbon bits, very similar to what's done in nature, and we do that above ground in about 30 minutes to create a crude oil. So there's a lot of versatility that we can provide with the harvesting system. We have different sizes that can go on platforms, that can go on land, small water bodies, large water bodies, quite versatile. And that's some of the algae that will come out of our system. This is the crude oil. And I believe we have one more shot as we end this video of showing the clear water that comes out of our system. One of the things that we're doing today is working on Lake Okeechobee. This has been a problem for the state of Florida because not only does it hold water, but it releases it to both the Gulf of Mexico and to the Atlantic Ocean. Here's a project that we've developed where we're working with the marina, very similar to what we'll be testing at Clear Lake for the Blue Ribbon Committee, but we'll have harvesters, and this is showing through computer modeling over a 1-year period how the discharge water will mix and essentially create a larger plume along the lake. Reason why I'm showing this one, this is in Southampton, Long Island. This is a smaller lake, but this lake we were able to get an appropriation. We were able to get a federal appropriation for $5 million and a local match of 5.3 to provide $10 million of funding. And what we'll be building in a very astute residential neighborhood is a harvesting system. I wanted to show the graphics of what this would look like and what we're proposing for Clear Lake. Something of this where you have a lot of human interaction that can be part of this. Kiosks put up in the front. It's an attractive system for considering that we'll be removing algae cells from the project. And the footprints are relatively small. We're doing it in a very green manner with porous pavers, very decorative vines that go on the side to provide a little softer approach to how we're starting to clean up in the future. For Clear Lake, for the Blue Ribbon Committee, this was our demonstration project. We were going to create a clean zone inside this area. So residents and regulatory agencies will have the ability to interact with their discharge water to kind of see how that would work. The intent or the ask to Congressman Thompson's office would be very similar to what was done in New York, and that would be to ask for additional federal support that would allow a more permanent structure to be placed here, to allow this to be really the centerpiece for the state of California, and to then use that as an opportunity to secure additional funding. So with that, I will stop sharing the screen and turn it over for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Vice Mayor Overton.
So I guess my question is exactly where, if we did this, where would it be put at? Have we thought about, like, is this something that's going to be on our end of the lake somewhere, you know?
Yeah, the proposal is, you know, we'd have a lot of details to work out if we got the money,
understand
but to
that.
put it at Red Bud Park.
Okay, that's kind of what I was hoping that.
Councilmember Kramer.
Yes, you talked about changing this into products that could be used in agriculture or biocrude, I assume to be made into a diesel or a gasoline product, oil product. Is there revenue to this project coming out to that? That's one question.
Yeah, the revenue is not there. This is still a breakthrough project. We're looking at finding a way that we can convert this. It does become more economical when we get to scale, but we're not harvesting enough algae at this point yet. But it does open up the opportunity for Department of Energy money because we can create clean energy from the algae. It also provides a closed loop sustainability aspect of it. We've done 2 projects with the Army Corps of Engineers, New York and Florida, and we'll be doing others this year where we'll be continuing to advance the technology to go to scale. But as of today, there's no scaled plants in our country. And the push and what we're trying to do is to get there. So yes, we do have a novel approach, and we have technology that really are considered breakthrough, and we have the opportunity to test them at Clear Lake, which we'll be doing when the Blue Ribbon Committee provides the funding. But we want to take it a step further and make it a more permanent structure at Clear Lake.
Okay, and then, so if you can't sell the material now, what do you do with that cake that you do, that comes out the other end?
We're working with agricultural uses. We finished a project last year with the EPA. We found that the algae was able to displace about 50% of the commercial fertilizer. So we do see a benefit there. We also see a benefit with converting it not just to crude oil, but we can convert it into natural gas. And at this point, I think for Clear Lake, the vision would be that we would use it on site. We would use it to generate power to keep the system running.
Oh, so you would return it back and use it right there in the system?
Correct. That would be the vision. Correct.
Okay. So the last question, is there an odor in this process?
Well, yeah, there's definitely an odor with harmful algal blooms, and we try to be ahead of the game so we're not waiting for the algae to die. Our vision is not to take up dead algae mats, but to harvest throughout the year. We have, because of the potential of cyanotoxins and the threat of aerosolization of those toxins, we have outfitted our harvesters with sealed containers. That way we can keep a negative pressure, they can run it through carbon, and will not have
the odor,
basically. And the odor. We were doing it more for the health to the public, but yes, that also addresses the odor issue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Slutin.
Interesting program. How long has this been around? I'm always kind of nervous when starting something, we're trying to fix something or we're creating another problem down the line. I mean, will there be enough nutrients for the bass fishing, et cetera? So.
Yeah, for the size of Clear Lake, absolutely. And what we look at, and this is novel. So we've been 7 years with this project. We've conducted over 15 pilot projects, all funded either by the federal government or state governments throughout the country. We've won seven awards on the technology because of its innovation. The intent is we want to reduce the amount of phosphorus in the water to a healthier level, because when we have too much phosphorus, it triggers more algae growth. We would not be reducing or eliminating that level. We would be reducing it down percentage-wise. So for Clear Lake, I think the best benefit here would be to see the effluent, which is crystal clear, come out, and that water by our process becomes very oxygenated, which provides other benefits to the shoreline. So we can then start having more healthier plant growth along the shoreline. We can also, because of the oxygen, also look at the benefits of keeping the nutrients in the sediments and not allowing them to come out. So the process in its all picture is really, I think, going to be a game changer in how harmful algal blooms are dealt with.
Thank you.
Councilmember.
Well, this is exciting to see. So just operationally, I saw a couple of different techniques, I guess you could say, in your presentation. Is there any kind of an outward collection system or a sweep that would push the algae into the intake? Or do you just, does it work solely on what comes by the intake?
Well, what we'll be doing is, again, if you can visualize that jar of dirty water, We essentially have sensors. We set the intake really close to the surface. In this case, in the phototrophic zone, maybe about 1 foot to 2 foot, and it'll depend on different seasons within Clear Lake. But from what we have seen and from the data we have evaluated, there is a rich amount of algae throughout Clear Lake on any given day. It might not be visible on the surface as dead algae, and again, that we want to prevent that. We really don't, that doesn't do much. That's easy, you can scrape that up. What we're looking for is the algae in the water column itself. And we believe because of the currents and everything else that that's a homogeneous mixture, and we should be able to amply get out a very rich algae intake on that.
Thank you.
What is the area of effect? This one unit's not going to cover the entire lake, correct?
Correct. This is one, we would need multiple units around here, but I think if we can get the infrastructure built, the pipelines put in place, the way we have set our harvesters up, we now have the ability to run these on an iPhone from a command center offsite. So we'll have a collection system that takes the algae biomass out, but we do have the ability to train local staff to run these, or to essentially turn the keys over to the city if that's something of interest, or we can run them on our own. But I think here the intent would be if we could build a more permanent structure, we can then get more regulatory agencies, more political leaders, the governor, to come out and see what can be done on these problematic water bodies. When we have an abundance of nutrients, we now have a path forward where we can not only clean the water, but we can also create a valuable product. So what was once considered wet waste is now a potential feedstock for clean energy or sustainable agriculture. So I think these things are really where we want to lean into the future. And Clear Lake, because of the conditions in the lake, make this an ideal spot to conduct this kind of a showcase project.
So I guess maybe a bit more specific with Redbud and Clear Lake. So the impact in water quality would be mostly felt downstream. So between Redbud and to Cache Creek, nothing to the west of that, correct?
Well, yeah, it's going to be, and that's kind of why we wanted that curtain, why we wanted that particular area, so we can make a clean zone within the lake and then release that clean water out. Each of the harvesters, the land-based ones, are modular, so they could be stacked, do 1 million gallons a day of treatment. So essentially, at the end of the month, we would be discharging about 30 million gallons of clean, highly oxygenated water into Clear Lake. And depending on how the currents go, we can direct that discharge. But eventually, over time, we will have a clean zone.
Councilmember Kramer.
Yes, that sounds like a great project, an ambitious project. And we're showcasing this for the rest of the world, it sounds like, or at least the rest of California. So who's going to foot the bill? Are you expecting Clear Lake to foot all the bill, or is there?
No, we actually have money coming in from the Blue Ribbon Committee that has vetted our project and committed to providing $1.2 million to do a pilot test. And that's going to be a short-term pilot test. We would like to ask the congressman to provide federal support to make a more permanent structure at this site, like we did for Southampton, where they received $10.3 million. And I think that was a 60-acre lake, and you have a 45,000-acre lake. So if we can present this as a showcase project, I believe we can then use that to leverage and obtain more federal dollars, because it's important not just to Clear Lake, but it's important to our country that we have a technology available, or technologies that can make an impact. And I think this is really set up to be an ideal spot for showcasing this.
I don't disagree with that. Assuming you can get this 10 million or so from, how much is the cost of this, by the way, to put the more stacked structure that does how many gallons a day were you saying?
Well, we're going to have a 1 million gallon a day system there for a temporary period. We would like to ask the congressman to provide that match. It's our understanding that they can do a 5-to-1 match. So it'd be close to, it'll be under 5 million, it'd be 4.8 would be the max. And that will give us the flexibility, and we can work with the city on the infrastructure, on what you want built, how it would blend into the system, and even provide some interaction with the general public. So it'll give us a little bit more flexibility.
Oh, I'm still not sure I heard how
Okay.
much the city.
It would be a $5 million ask to the congressman.
To the congressman.
Correct.
With nothing to the city?
Nothing to the city.
We just provide the land.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Sutton.
The water in the lake is owned by Yolo County. I mean, have you touched base with them or?
No, we haven't. When we did the initial pilot test, we thought that the city would be the best place for us to do the demonstration. So that led us to, if we're going to do the demonstration here, for us, it made logical sense to say, why don't we just extend that demonstration and make it a more permanent infrastructure and have capital harvesters there on a more permanent basis.
I think you need to get approval from the Yolo County Flood Control and Conservation District because it's their water.
Well, some of it's their water, but we're also not taking their water. We're just borrowing it and cleaning it, but.
Right. And that's I'm glad you mentioned that because yes, this is a side stream process. We bring 1 million gallons in and we put 1 million gallons back. The only thing we're taking out is the algae.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't anticipate that we would need fish and game permits for the way this is set up, but yeah, I mean, that's a whole process that would have to happen if we receive the funding.
In terms of timeline, if we did get this funding, how long until we could actually deploy something like this?
Well, I don't know, Dan. I mean, once we had authorization or notification that the funding was available, I mean, how long do you think it would take to, I mean, as I understand, this unit would be, built, it doesn't exist, and, any anticipation on the sort of time to be operational? I mean, is it a year or 6 months or?
Well, yeah, I believe the way the Congress works, the funding, and Alan, you pointed it out here, they are still working on 2024, but assuming they're back on schedule, funding should be in 2025, and then would go through the permitting process, which might take, 3 to 6 months. And during that time, we can get the equipment manufactured. So, we're probably in about a year after we receive the funding to have something on site.
So our county is thinking proactively, and they're trying to pass the implementation of sonic buoys in the lake, especially around our area. If that were to pass, would that impact the operations of your unit?
It depends where the sonic buoys are going to be. We can take our intake and move that away from the area. And there might be some synergies on our effluent, the clean water coming out. The sonic buoys might be able to prevent algae from going into the clean area. But yeah, there's always ways to work around. That's a very large lake, so we can figure that out. I think there might be some synergies there.
Any other
Just
questions?
a reminder on the buoys, they aren't like removing algae from the lake. It just like essentially is supposed to keep it from clumping together. And I mean, you brought that up. I mean, I have to share some frustration. I mean, at the end of the day, really, this should be a project that the county's taking on. But, we haven't really seen that support from the board to do this type of stuff and try some different solutions, unfortunately. I mean, Supervisor Sabatier has done a lot of advocacy for this, but I mean, even the sonic buoy thing is kind of stalled out because the board direction was, go find a bunch of grants to cover this, and the county isn't willing to actually invest some of the money that they have into seeing some of these solutions come forward. So that's why, I think the council needs to understand that, if we want to see some leadership on this, we might need to get directly involved.
Thank you, Senior Manager.
So curiosity, what are you asking us for this project?
Well, I mean, we need to talk about other projects too, but I mean, at some point, we need to know, is this something you like enough to submit to Congressman Thompson and ask him to give us $5 million?
And then this might be something that our supervisor might look at this instead of the buoys. This might be a better feasible thing than the buoys, because I know the buoys are just basically pushing the algae down, which creates more the next year. So this might be a more feasible thing to me. I've always, of course, we all know if you take it out, it's better than just pushing it down to the bottom. Might be something to consider instead of going the buoy way, maybe coming in and maybe helping support something like this.
Our supervisor sitting out in the audience, maybe he's going to say something.
I know that.
Maybe.
I know that. I'm just saying, that's why I said it, is that might be something that we might want to look at instead of, maybe coming aboard. So.
I would love to see both of them tried. I think it's a big enough lake, and a lot of this technology has been tried in other areas, smaller water bodies and whatnot, but we need to be trying something, and it's just not happening right now.
Councilmember Kramer? No. Councilmember Swooten?
How clean is that water that comes out of it? I mean,
If you saw the video, it's relatively crystal clear. You can see through it. If need be, we would not do it for this lake, but we can add additional treatment to it and turn it to drinking water. But yes, it's a very effective way of clarifying the water and taking those sediments or those particles, in this case, algae, out. So the benefits and the problem that we have with algae, well, it's good. We need it. It's a food source, an oxygen source for our planet. When you get an abundance of it, it blocks out the photosynthesis, or photosynthesizes, blocks out the sunlight for those benthic habitat, and essentially creates problems. And it then becomes a dominant species in the water. And that's what we're seeing. So by taking the nutrients out and reducing that food source and providing clean water back, we can help the lake. This is kind of like a kickstart to help the lake get back and restore itself. We're trying to work with nature, not against it. And that was the whole philosophy on why we moved forward with this process and are so passionate about it, because it really does offer a better solution, one that works with the water body itself.
so some of the water districts have issues with the algae, that they can't, if you have an algae bloom, that, they can't always treat them properly or things. So this would be a solution for them too.
Correct.
Councilmember Kramer?
Yes, it brings up, you said obviously you had a 60-acre lake, and we have 48,000 acres. Have you looked at any other locations on the lake that would make some sense? Or
on Clear Lake, because of where you're positioned, where the city is positioned, it really does take the blunt of all the algae. It seems to flow down to that lower arm, and I think having the harvesters there would be the best position geography-wise. And as Alan pointed out, the lake is big. It can go anywhere, but I think here, visibility-wise, because this is new and novel, we really want to provide that platform where the city could really be in the spotlight and say, we've, just by circumstance of where the city is and how you're moving forward, we're going to have, some of the leading tech out at your city. And it'll be very visible because they'll see the clean water going right back into the lake. And then over time, we would see more habitat. And I think that plays well to the residents, it plays well for our nation, and especially for the state of California.
Oh, I'd love to help the nation and the state of California, but I'd like to help our lake first.
Well, that's why we're going to be there. And I think if we're there,
We're going to do all these things, maybe we can get a little break as we go forward. I'm sorry, just had to say that.
no, it's fine. I completely understand that.
Vice Mayor Overton.
So basically what I'm seeing here now is you'd like us to basically say we'd like to go for 5 million from the Congress, and $1 million of that's going to go towards this project, is that, or?
No, this counts on 1.2 million that was allocated by the Blue Ribbon Committee. We would ask the congressman for 5 million. And
For the
then
Blue
that,
Ribbon Committee?
huh?
For the Blue Ribbon Committee?
No,
or
we would
for-
be
through
asking it to
this?
come to us, and
Okay.
then we would construct this. As I understand, the equipment would then essentially be owned by us and would be operated for what, maybe up to a year based on the funding available, and then beyond that, there would have to, or in that time, there would have to be some type of operating plan established to figure out how to operate over the long term if it was successful.
But we're not wanting to take away from our recreation project for this.
No.
Okay,
No.
I just want to make sure. So I just want to make sure that we're not taking away from something else, so, because to me.
Well, I mean, the
too
way
many
this
things
process
going and then
works,
nothing
we
works,
don't, we don't know what the priorities might be in Congress, what the congressman might like to see. What I would recommend, I mean, if you like this idea, I mean, there's nothing stopping us from submitting, maybe 3 different projects that the council likes, and then, it's in the congressman's hands and the subcommittee's hands on which one they decide.
I don't want to take away
Or, I
from
mean, or, they could fund all of them, or you don't know, but I mean, anyway.
I don't want to take away from our recreation, because, I mean, that's, to me, is we start getting too many things going and then nothing really gets completed. And we so I don't want to take away from one project that we've been trying to get going here to start. Not that I don't love this project, of course, I've been on the algae thing forever. So I love this project, but I just don't want to take away from I don't want to take away from our recreation. So, I mean, I'm okay with this as long as we're not taking away from our recreation.
We're not the only ones that are putting in, by the way. The county's also submitted, 5 or so projects for the same thing.
What other projects? I'm sorry.
You'd have to, yeah.
Well, the mayor and I did a little brainstorming over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think generally, just like road projects, aren't something that are funded through this process, are not, yeah. So again, we could ask for more money for the sports complex project. Other really high, I mean, to your point, I wouldn't recommend, we want to create a new nature preserve or something that, we haven't started. Like, we have so many big projects in the works, it would be nice to kind of focus on them. But like, for example, with the airport redevelopment project, well, we have worked into that, as you know, is kind of a public market and some public space that we envision as being at least partially like a business incubator space. It could be for restaurants and other small folks. Maybe that's something that the subcommittee would like. There's a lot of other improvements that could be made at Redbud Park. We know from the drought that our boat ramps need to be extended. So we could.
Sorry. I mean, I'm just saying is that there's our.
It's it's possible. I mean, I don't think renovation projects are often,
I'm not talking the renovation, I'm talking the finishing of the outside and stuff like that, so.
Okay, well, I mean, you can ask for anything you want.
Highlands Park is another possibility.
That's the one I was thinking. And is there some possibility, I mean, a lot of people are wondering if on the east side of 53 that they don't have any park-quite facilities. Is there something that we can do over there that might be a project that could be funded?
again, yes, there are things we can do. We have a few things that we can focus on there, but, you know, we have a whole lot of projects that we're trying to push forward, and I think that focusing on a few of the ones that we're really leaning into probably makes the most sense.
So focusing on the things that we kind of already have going, the recreation
you
center,
know-
the airport property facility, and then this. To me,
Well, I
those
mean,
are-
one other a little smaller thing is, you know, that we kind of have in the works, but we're, again, a little stalled out on is, you know, redoing the skate park. Supervisor Sabatier has brought a lot of money to that, but it's still a little short. And then, you know, because of the splash pad and other things, we've had a number of requests for like bathroom facilities over on that side of the park. So you might be able to, you know, submit a smaller project there. I mean, you know, we've been spoiled a little bit with these big requests. I mean, when he gets to ask for $15 million and we're getting a big chunk of it as a big district. So, you know, if it's something he really likes, obviously he's able to pull it off for us. But, you know, I think this year, the other two projects besides our 4.1 million that was funded was just under $1 million project. And a $500,000 project. So, you know, they're not all 4 or 5 million like we've been used to.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So this project was recommended by Congressman Thompson? No.
No, I mean, they did talk to the congressman's staff about it and explain it to them, and there is some interest there, but, you know, we aren't really going to know until we submit.
Is this, I mean, Cecilia always was interested in the Blue Ribbon Committee and stuff like that. Does he have any influence on this?
Well, I mean, we could try to get letters of support from her. You know, that's a big part of the process, so that would be one thing she could help with. I mean, I'm not expecting the state to throw out any more money.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've spent a lot of time getting letters of support, and if she would be willing to do that, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so I think next steps here, let's open it up to the public, bring it back for deliberation. We'll try to focus this very broad conversation. So anyone in the chamber would like to speak, please come forward. Please state your name and city of your residence.
My name's Ralph Volpe, and I live here in Clear Lake for the last 13 years. I am originally from Berkeley. Don't hold that against me. I do have a question. I haven't heard any mention of other type of environmental impacts of even a small scale operation like this. Is it for example, I'm an engineer, sorry. Is it a passive system or is it an active system? Does it have active components, in which case could that generate sound pollution in the community or in the locale around, or other environmental concerns which haven't been mentioned? That's my question.
Thank you. Mr. Levy, can you touch on that? Any other sound impacts, and to his first question, is this an active or a passive system?
An excellent question. Yes, this is an active system. We were put in a lot of effort to keep the sound down. It'll essentially be like a pool pump that we will have, and we have containerized it. And if you saw the renderings we did for Southampton, that's going in a residential neighborhood next to the promenade of the of the park. So this is not really going to be a detriment. It's going to be an asset. The village of Southampton wants to showcase this, and they want kiosks put up, etc. They're very proud of what they're doing to clean the lake up, and I think the residents will find that same benefit here. So yes, it is a active system. We use air to generate the separation process. We use a compressed air system, so the moving parts are quite minimal, and the noise would be essentially similar to a pool pump.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Please state your name and city of residence.
Bruno Sabatier, City of Clear Lake. I think we have to try something. And when I brought LG Sonic to the Board of Supervisors, and I've spoken to the council about it, I will not shy away from saying it's possible that it won't work. We are looking for innovative solutions to a problem we have yet to solve. There have been some attempts, and nothing has shown that this is the kind of money we want to spend to continue attempting these things, because it just doesn't show the results we're looking for. I think we need to look at one project only, because yes, it's a big lake. Let's, just like we stopped doing the LG Sonic in the Clear Lake Oaks area to let them do the oxygenation, rather than spending twice the amount of dollars for two projects, where maybe one project would be able to provide the results we're looking for. Like it was said, it's a big lake. We can do LG Sonic somewhere else, or LG Sonic here, and do the harvester here or somewhere else. Because we want to know what the result of the actual project itself is, or else how do we know which one to replicate when we're trying to figure out which pilot project actually worked? So I'm willing to help the city support this, what the city needs in order to get our businesses and our hotels to stop getting people to cancel their reservations and go home. We need to stop this status quo that we have. I think all of these ideas have their own type of flaws. LG Sonic, the sonar can only go so far, so we have to have a whole lot of different tiny devices all around the lake and hope that no boaters are going to crash into them, and figure out how do we solve that situation. For here, I was hearing some numbers, and I was just doing some quick calculations. Our lake is about 1.1 million acre feet. We're looking at potentially treating 500 acre feet a month. How much does that actually change the overall area of just the area of this arm? Until we try it, there's no way of really knowing. So I support you guys pushing this forward. Yes, it has the potential for the Board of Supervisors to say, hey, the city's pushing for that project, so let's not support another project. I don't agree with that. I think that if we get our LG Sonic going, the city has the chance to say, hey, maybe we can cancel this project or continue. That's a decision you get to make. There's always the possibility that we need things today, and whatever we asked Congressman Thompson, we can cancel and say, never mind, we already got what we needed. But I think we need to have the conversation about what's possible and what we need to do, and not which one we're going to do, because we have to push all of these things forward and then eventually decide which one we're going to end up with. So I'm happy to support this. If this is what ends up happening, I'm happy to continue to push the LG Sonic and see where we go. I am reaching out and trying to obtain grants for that, just like the Board of Supervisors requested that I do. But I think that as long as we have multiple agencies attempting to solve this problem, I think we're going to solve it. If it relies on the city of Clear Lake, or if it relies solely on the county, we're probably going to not solve it, or end up going a whole lot slower getting to that solution we're looking for. So I'm in support of you guys pushing this forward. Let's keep the conversation happening. Let's look at both of these ideas and continue to research and make the right decision on what will have the greatest effect economically for this area right here.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, prior to the meeting, I received written comment from the Khoi Nation of Northern California via email, which I then forwarded to the council and will make part of the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right.
Was that on this item?
It was on, there was a comment on this item within the letter.
Yeah, they basically asked for additional money for the Burns Valley Sports Complex to do tribal monitoring as part of that project. So just wanted to also point out that, you know, there already is tribal monitoring that the city's committed to for that project.
All right. Thank you. Bringing it back to council, it sounds like we have a couple of different paths to go here. Councilmember Purdock.
Well, I just would like to bring us back a few years. This is something that has been talked about for decades. Plans have been brought forth, and unfortunately, nothing has ever been done. Always tabled. I recall a local entrepreneur wanted to start harvesting the algae back in the late 70s, I believe, and there was a question of, well, what is the county going to make off of it when they started looking at financials, and it killed the whole thing. While I don't disagree with you, Councilmember Overton, I really want to see that sports complex done. I think we have a very unique opportunity in a small window of time. I want to congratulate the Blue Ribbon Commission for their vision on this, and I wholeheartedly support this along with the Burns Valley Sports Complex and allow the congressman to make their decision. But I think this is the old phrase, strike while the iron's hot. We have some new technology that has never been tried before, and we could be the showcase jurisdiction for that. So you have my full support.
Any other comments? Councilmember Kramer.
Yes, I also was around the 70s when they were trying the different harvester methods. I think they had different goals than what you did, Dan. They were looking at making cattle feed or making different things out of it as a project to make revenue, and the county didn't think they were going to get their part of it, I guess, so it died. Anyhow, moving forward, I also think that Clear Lake is it's the cornerstone of our industry. It's what we have as industry, tourism, and the Clear Lake is the biggest part of it. So I also support anything we can do to make Clear Lake more tenable for tourists to come in. So I like this project as one possibility. Again, the sports complex is always going to be a priority for us. We're well into it, and we need to see it through. So I'd like to see that. But I think we should have a couple small projects as possibilities as well. The skate park and and the restrooms over at Austin's, I think are something that we should include in that as several other possibilities.
Okay. Councilmember Purdock, did you have another comment?
Well, just to follow up, if we do move forward with this, and again, I hope that we do, I thank Supervisor Sabatier for being here tonight. I appreciate his comments. I would hope that the supervisor in District 1 and the supervisor in District 3 would also be vying for this in support of our city moving forward. Thank you.
All right, so right now I'm hearing 2 firm yeses to the water project, a potential secondary plan that involves Austin Park, bathrooms and skate park as maybe an alternative if the council members.
I don't know how many you want to throw in there. I'd throw in Highlands Park in as a fourth one. But
We'll get to other options in a second. Vice Mayor Overton.
And I'm all for the water thing. I mean, we all know that, be honest with you, we know that's going to work. It's how much money it's going to cost us to do the whole lake. So when you take anything out of the water and put the water back, it's going to work. We've had a system here similar, not quite like that, but that did that back, I don't know, Jeff Smith, so it's been, 10 years ago? Back when we had a really bad algae thing, they spent $20, $30 million, $1,000 or whatever it was to set a unit here to pull the water out. And of course that works. And so I'm definitely know that will work is how much we're going to have to do to make it work for our whole area here. I believe the sonic things will work to push the algae down in other areas. So maybe if we have this at one area, we would need to have those maybe down on this side for the sonic part of it. So I'm game for using all of it. Like I said, the recreation thing is important. And I think if you want to throw in, I think like what Councilmember Kramer said, the park, but I think if we start spreading it out too much, then we're going to be in a bind. So let's not keep adding. We need to really decide. I do think that we already have started the park. I think we finished the park, if maybe that one project, our recreation project, and then this water thing. I think that should be all. If we're going to submit 3 projects, those should be the 3 that we submit.
So just so I'm clear, you said 3 projects. Prioritize those for me.
Recreation, the water system, and then the the park over here with the bathrooms and skate park or whatever. I don't.
So-
That's a smaller choice.
So your,
That's a smaller-
your priority would be Burns Valley additional funding there? Yes. Okay. Councilmember Slotin? Yeah.
I would like to get some additional feedback from the entities or the jurisdictions that you actually have. Some additional feedback on the jurisdictions that you have a system in place now. I'm always very hesitant to start with new technology that is, can create other issues. And to be honest, I know the need for Clear Lake, but I like to see some more background on your systems that shows that it actually works on a long-term basis. Because
Yeah.
as far as I can tell, you have 7 years of experience with this?
7 years of pilot testing, correct.
I like to see some data on it. And I don't want the city to spend $5 million, even though it comes from Washington, to spend on something that is not, if we look at it back 10 years from now, they said, oh, God, that was a huge mistake. And
No, and absolutely, and all of our documents are available. The ones with the Army Corps of Engineers are online. We did several years of studies with them. That's been proven. That actually won the Innovation of the Year, the award from the Army Corps of Engineers and through the national labs in our ability to have a breakthrough in this battle against harmful algal blooms. So we'll be more than happy to share all those reports. They were provided to the Blue Ribbon Committee. We probably spent a year and a half with them vetting through the process and the tech, and eventually were selected to be funded. What we're trying to do is advance it, and as it was pointed out by one of the other council members, this will work because it physically takes out the food. But we'll be more than happy to provide any and all documentation that would be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Timeline on this, Mr. Floor?
Well, timeline is we have to submit an application by this time next week. So, apologies. We probably should have brought information to the council about this sooner, so you could learn about it. But we're not going to be at a point where it's 100% proven technology in Clear Lake before we decide whether to get funding and move forward. So we need to kind of determine the council's appetite for that.
I guess I'll chime in. I was a big proponent of the airport market and public space, but no one's mentioned that. And I promised Mr. Floor I'd let people air what they thought here. I agree, Austin Park, a good secondary option. I can buy into this as well. I do want to make sure you get the information you need. At this point, I think we have generally.
To wait already.
Yeah. I think at this point, we
It's never too late, because even though we submit a project, if it's a project that we turn around and decide, like we get the information, we say, no, this isn't going to work, we can turn around and say, we would prefer to take that money and move it to this project. So it's never too late. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
I don't know. I mean, I think there is some potential flexibility, but this is a very organic process.
So
I'm not totally against it, because if it does work, there are other options that I can think of that would help with other issues that we're dealing with within the city. So I'm not all against it, but I'm like I said, I'm always somewhat hesitant with these kind of new technology. And I've used new technology in the past in my previous business life, and it's about 50-50 where you can actually make money on it or be successful at it. So that's my two.
We don't do it, we know it won't work.
Well, here, maybe, that's why I want us to see other places that have it and see how they feel about how successful it is. I want to set some contact information for the agencies that you have worked for. I don't care about Corps of Engineers reports. That doesn't give me a whole fuzzy feeling about it. So I want to talk to the people that actually operate it and own it.
Communities.
And the communities that they're in.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Levy?
Yes, we can provide information, contact information from water management districts and counties that we've worked with.
Great, thank you.
So at this point, I feel like we do have a general consensus that this might be project number one. Councilmember Slutin, please do your due diligence if anything comes up in, I guess, the next week or so. Unfortunately, if it warrants bringing us all back together, I'd be open to that. I want to make sure you have a chance to look into this.
Do we have to prioritize the projects at this point in time? I don't think we have to make them number one, two, and
Then that's great. So if we were to say 1, 2, and 3, water project, we have consensus on Austin?
Well, the rec center, sports complex.
Sports Center.
The sports complex.
Sports like second.
For a small project, I like Austin's.
All right. So it sounds like right now, City Manager, we would be interested in this water project, more funding for Burns Valley, and then as an alternative smaller project, Austin Park Skate Park and bathroom facilities.
Okay, do you want to have me decide how much you want to ask for Burns Valley, or you want to throw a number out there? You can, I mean, we asked for, I don't know, 13 or 14 million last year, and we ended up with 4, so.
Well, 13 minus 4, that seems.
I mean, we can ask for the whole caboodle again and see, okay. And then I think we'll crunch a little bit more numbers. I think the gap on the skate park right now is about 300 grand. Unless we'll check Supervisor Sabatier's pockets before we figure that out. And then I don't know, I mean, it's going to be, I mean, we can scale up a lot on the bathrooms are really expensive, but I would guess something probably 250 range or something.
how do you want to structure this resolution?
Well, I mean, I would say just adopt the resolution based on the direction provided to staff and, make it clear that we have authorization to fill that out and submit it for those projects.
Just put to submit a community or community projects.
We would adjust the title to include those 3 projects.
Okay.
All right. If there's no other comments, I will take a motion.
I move that we approve City Council of Clear Lake Resolution number 2024-11, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clear Lake to submit 1, 2, 3 community project funding proposal.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Slutin, a second from Vice Mayor Overton. Please vote in your portal.
Motion passes with the unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. City Manager report.
Just a couple of things. I wanted to let the council know that we've been working with Clear Lake Waste Solutions, our waste hauler, for a little bit. And they're going to be transitioning, I think in June, there'll be information coming out to monthly billing rather than quarterly billing. They think that that's going to help the bad debt that we have and unpaid amount. We have a little different setup than most cities because we don't have any utility billing. And so what happens is the waste hauler attempts to collect, I think, 5 different times. And then if you don't pay your bill, they send the bill to the city and the city pays your bill and then try to collect it. Which isn't really that great, but they they have moved into most of Mendocino County, and, they were acquired by Waste Connections, a larger company, and they're doing Fort Bragg and all of Mendocino County now. And they've implemented this monthly billing, and they said that it's helped quite dramatically in their collection. People, it's easier for them to pay a monthly bill. They procrastinate when it's a quarterly, and then it's too much for them. So anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. There will be some, of course, information going out to customers later. The slide update on Lakeshore, it's still sitting there. It's still covered up, still appears to be relatively stable. And we have initiated design work for a retaining wall there, but we still have not gotten any commitment of state funds, and that's all waiting on a emergency declaration from the governor. So my ask is that all of you contact our legislative reps and any others to try to put pressure on and see, if we can get that declaration. Lakeport also made a local declaration in the county. We think that we meet the thresholds, but we're still waiting on that declaration. And so really hesitant, we don't have a finished design yet, but really hesitant to move forward with what's going to be a expensive construction project without knowing how it's going to be paid for. So, and then Oak Valley Villas ribbon cutting was supposed to be next week, but found out today that they've delayed that until later. So that's the Danco project over by the community center. That's really all I have to report. Thank you.
All right. I forget who I started with. Councilmember Kramer.
Not a lot. When I went to our RA meeting, did get I think a small grant, about 70-some thousand, and we're going to hire a consultant to talk more about biomass projects that the county may be able to participate in or hopefully get going. I think they presented to the board earlier this week on that. And I don't know much more about it than that, but anyhow, that was one meeting. I did also attend as an alternate for Councilmember Slotin, the Lake County Recreation Authority Agency. Tell me, you're the chair, so whatever the name of it.
I like them both.
Okay. I did a lot of listening. And if you have something to report, since you're the chair of it, I'll defer to you. One little thing, I was talking to a lady yesterday, and we talked for quite a while. Anyhow, it got around to, she visited Clear Lake here, I don't know, a week or several weeks ago, but with her 3-year-old grandchild, and he wanted to meet a policeman. And they went around and showed up in our parking lot, and I sent a photo that was taken of him on Officer Harden's front of his car, and Officer Harden really showed him a good time. So I wanted to commend our police department for their community outreach, and I think I've already talked to Chief Hobbs about that. He also has a picture of the 3-year-old reaching up at our mural over there with the kite flying. And she's got the picture just so it looks like he's flying the kite. So she likes that mural as well. So a couple of good things about our Clear Lake. It's always good to see from people that are coming from outside the city. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilmember Kramer. Thank you. Councilmember Purdock.
Really have nothing to report. Just want to congratulate the Rotary Club of Clear Lake on another successful seafood boil. It's a great job.
Councilmember Slotin.
I have nothing to report. I was out of town.
Vice Mayor Overton.
Because I have nothing to report because I was laid up with surgery, so.
One vacation, one surgery. I like it. I like the dynamic. Yes, the LCRA again, if you don't know what this is, it's a combination of the three agencies here in Lake County, the county, Lakeport, and the city. We welcomed new Mayor Michael Furrio from Lakeport to the meeting. And the goal there is to really focus on recreation and how we can make our community healthier. So in that meeting, we talked a little bit about some capital projects that we could do around the county, one being some improvements over at the Middletown Pool. We had talked about the rec center here in Clear Lake. We had talked about facilities over in Lakeport, and the focus should be across the whole county. So that was an opportunity for us to see some potential ideas around how we can improve facilities down in Middleton. And we also talked about programming. So there is a serious lack of recreational programming here in Lake County, and we think it's something that can be solved together with all our agencies thinking through this problem. And we are one of the few fortunate cities that have a wonderful recreation director who has already been leading the charge for our city, and I think that can be the example of how some of the other areas operate. And actually, Councilmember Over, I wanted to ask you, are you going to the Cal Cities meeting tomorrow?
No, I'm not able to.
Okay. So I'll be heading over to that tomorrow for the general meeting, and I'll report back next meeting. So with that, are there any future agenda items? Seeing none, we are going to now move to closed session. Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to also announce that we received written comment on one of the items for closed session, the city manager evaluation from the Koine Nation of Northern California via email before the meeting, which I then forwarded to the council and will be made part of the record.
Thank you so much. All right, 5-minute recess, and then we'll resume in closed session.
Wait a second.